It all begins on a planet very far from Earth called Thebe. An old man cries out angrily, calling for the wanderer from another world. He shouts that everything this wanderer has done so far goes against the balance. The elder orders him to stop disrupting the natural order of the world. The young woman with red eyes, smiling, orders that they all be eliminated. The archmage reacts quickly and orders all his units to attack. A fearsome skeleton warrior prepares to advance fiercely. The wizards soon realize that their opponents are terrifying undead. These creatures have completely crossed the barrier between life and death. One of the monsters roars furiously as it brandishes its sword against them. One of the wizards screams in despair upon seeing the creature approaching. The skeleton warrior attacks mercilessly, piercing the enemy with his blade. The worst part is that these monsters continue fighting. Even after they've been defeated, a gigantic stone monster roars loudly, displaying all its fury. That horde looked like death itself. Walking among the living, a dangerous skeleton archer prepares his glowing arrow for the shot. A massive explosion of magic consumes enemy soldiers in an instant. Two intense red eyes emerge, gleaming in the middle of a dark mist. A hooded, skeletal figure channels powerful purple magic. The bodies of the fallen begin to be enveloped by a mysterious purple energy. The one who controls this entire army is the feared commander of the Immortal Legion. She is a legendary necromancer who commands the forces of darkness. She summons her special ability to bring the dead back to life. The bodies begin to rapidly transform into gruesome skeletons. The surviving wizards watch everything, completely shocked and speechless, and an entire army of new hooded monsters emerges before everyone. Yunha mocks Makarov, saying that she managed to get excellent servants from his troops. One of the wizards attempts to counterattack by unleashing a massive blast of fire. The attack generates a massive explosion that consumes the battlefield. Yunha is known for being the most powerful necromancer and mistress of the underworld. She introduces herself, revealing that her real name is Bake Yuna. With her command, an immense column of purple light rises to the heavens. The enemies panic before the girl's terrifying power. Makarov stares at the sky, utterly incredulous at what he is witnessing. A devastating shower of energetic meteors begins to fall upon them. The overwhelming attack causes the mages to scream in pain as they are destroyed. One of the opponents desperately pleads for salvation amidst the chaos. All that remains on the battlefield are the defeated bodies of the mages. The archmage sees his forces utterly annihilated and his staff broken. Yunha approaches and asks if he still intends to resist while alone. He is horrified, unable to understand how a human can possess so much power. Without wasting any time, she begins to draw another magic circle in the air. A gigantic and terrifying blue creature begins to materialize. The legendary ferryman Charon reappears, majestic and wielding his great scythe. She says the entity is perfect for bringing the archmage to his end. The old man despairs when he sees that she controls even beings from the underworld. He attempts one last attack, yelling at her to stop disturbing the world. Charon advances through the air with extreme agility, ready to cut down the enemy. The powers collide violently, generating intense flashes across the area. The bluish creature emerges relentlessly right before the desperate Makarov. Makarov screams furiously as he tries to use his last spell against the powerful attack. He refuses to accept defeat and tries to fight back with all his hatred. With a swift and relentless movement, Charon's scythe decapitates the archmage. Yunha reflects on having surpassed human limits and completely agrees with it. She stares at the lifeless body, saying that he has killed her many times in the past. The young woman concludes that it was Makarov's own pride that led him to this tragic end. Suddenly, a mysterious glint is reflected in the red eyes of the powerful necromancer. She finally finds the magical, shining pendant known as the Tears of the Goddess. Holding the valuable item in her hand, she smiles victoriously, having achieved what she wanted. After going through hundreds of trials and nearly dying many times, she won. The goal she had pursued all this time was finally within her reach. Yuna calls for Cerezia, who silently observes the combat scene. Cerezia, the goddess of harmony, asks if she was summoned by the necromancer. The young woman asks if she can finally return to her old home. She can barely contain her excitement at finally being able to return to Earth. Cerese answers nervously, and Ina becomes suspicious of the suspicious smile she's giving. The goddess tries to disguise her joy by saying that she is only happy for Yunha's success. Yunha remembers meeting that proud goddess about 70 years ago. After defeating her in the past, the goddess essentially became her personal assistant. The necromancer wonders if she should give her one last lesson before leaving. Cerese stammers, warning that the energy of her death could end up corrupting the artifact. Yunha listens to the goddess's serious advice and realizes that it actually makes sense. Now that we have the core of the spell in hand, the transfer process should go smoothly. Cerese warns that dimensional travel can cause serious side effects, such as loss of power. Yunha gets annoyed by the repetitive warnings and says she already understands the rules. She takes a deep breath and tries to focus completely on the beginning of the return ritual. The goddess begins to emanate an intense golden glow as she activates the magic circle. Yunha reflects emotionally that she has spent more than a century there and wonders what the Earth is like now. She remembers her beloved younger sister, Sioha, with great affection. The necromancer bites her lip with determination, anxious to reunite with her family. In the midst of the bright light, Yunha calls upon the goddess to say her final words of farewell. She thanks her sincerely, leaving the goddess completely surprised by the gentle gesture. Yunha confesses that at first she thought the return method was just a lie to survive. She advises Cerese to be careful, so that no one attacks her while she's away. With a gentle smile on her face, the young woman bids farewell to her former companion on the journey. A massive column of blue light shoots towards the sky, completing the grand journey. Cerese watches as the remnants of the powerful dimensional travel magic slowly fade away. She smiles with a rather mischievous look and confesses that she now feels a little guilty. The goddess reveals that she altered a detail of the spell to make the necromancer's appearance cute. Yunha lands rather unsteadily, falling directly into a dark city alley. She complains, quite angrily, about being thrown into the middle of a pile of garbage. The young woman slowly opens her eyes, trying to understand exactly where she has just landed. She observes the dark alley and notices the bright lights of the city right in front of her. Looking at the ground, she recognizes the typical asphalt she had missed so much. The bright signs and honking horns indicate that she has finally managed to return. She sees the large mirrored buildings and the busy people walking along the bustling streets. Overcome with immense happiness, she shouts in celebration of her long-awaited return to Earth. While running excitedly, thinking about having an ice-cold soda, she approaches a shop window. Suddenly, upon seeing her reflection in the glass, she is completely shocked and speechless. The girl touches the glass in fright, realizing she has returned to being a child's body. Yuna stares at her reflection in the shop window in panic, unable to believe that the child is her. She recalls that Cerese mentioned losing her powers, but never said anything about becoming young again. Suddenly, the door of a building opens rapidly and hits the girl. Two men leave the scene and ask, concerned, if she was hurt by the blow. She gets extremely annoyed at being treated like a simple, harmless little child. At that moment, her red eye glows intensely as she tries to unleash her immense power. Before she could do anything, the little girl simply fainted on the floor. She feels a terrible pain in her chest. Realizing that something is very wrong with her body, pedestrians around begin to gather, finding the girl extremely cute and different. A young man approaches and extends his hand, trying to help her get up from the ground. She feels as if all her immense strength is completely sealed away by chains. The man keeps asking if she's okay, while she can only groan in pain. Yunha begins to cry in despair, unable to understand what has actually happened to her. It all began 10 years ago on Earth when dungeon portals and monsters appeared out of nowhere. On that terrible day, parents ended up dying after a building collapsed. At that very moment, Inha was engulfed by a mysterious, bright light in front of her sister. The story now depicts a terrifying stone golem attacking the hunters in the dungeon. The warriors attempt to defend themselves by coordinating their attacks to directly against the stone monster. Several mages use their abilities and unleash powerful bursts of fire against their opponent. The attack hits the target squarely, generating a magnificent explosion of light. The hunters celebrate upon realizing they have managed to break through the enemy's defenses. Sioha seizes the perfect opportunity and swiftly advances with her gleaming spear. With a focused and fearless gaze, she prepares to deliver the final blow. The young woman delivers an extremely precise blow, piercing the stone giant. The terrifying monster is completely shattered, falling defeated to the dungeon floor. Those who were chosen by the mysterious system became known as hunters. Among them is Sioha, a skilled and respected AE rank hunter. The group leader thanks everyone for the excellent performance on today's mission. Suddenly, Sioha receives an unexpected call from a police station. She answers the phone and is shocked to hear what the police officer on the other end says. The young woman is devastated to hear that her beloved sister, who had gone missing, has been found. She immediately runs to the police station to confirm the news. Sioha asks, intrigued, if that little girl really claims to be her missing sister. The police officer explains that the girl knows all of Sioha's personal information. Sitting on the bench, Yunho whispers angrily, threatening to turn everyone into skeletons. The hunter is confused because her missing sister shouldn't just be a child, but she missed her so much that she decided not to waste that one precious chance. The two go to a hospital to undergo detailed medical examinations. The doctor confirms with surprise that the DNA test indicates they are indeed sisters. Sioha begins to cry tears of joy upon realizing she has recovered her sister. The doctor explains that the girl's strange behavior is likely a result of trauma from everything she has been through. He recommends that Sioha take very good care of her since her mind is quite unstable. Sioha doesn't care about the reasons and is simply grateful to have her sister back. The huntress lovingly holds Yunhe's little hand to comfort her. She promises with all her heart that she will protect her from everything and invites her to come home. A year passes and Sioha's cry echoes loudly through the residential building where they live. She bangs on the bedroom door, arguing with her sister for having spent the night playing games. Sioha says she's leaving for a guild meeting and leaves some tasks for the younger member. Yunho replies lazily from under the covers, not wanting to get out of bed anytime soon. Sioha lets out a tired sigh, but shows all her affection for her sister before leaving. Sioha bids farewell to Yunho before leaving home for her hunting engagement. Yunha grumbles under the covers, thinking that her sister is looking more and more like their mother. Time passes very slowly while the girl enjoys her deep sleep. It's past noon when she finally starts to wake up, complaining about the brightness. She stretches in bed, remembering that it's been a whole year since she returned to Earth. During that time, she ended up becoming a complete layabout who only wanted to sleep and eat. His daily routine in his new life had become extremely simple and repetitive. The first step of the day is having a late lunch while watching videos of hunters on the internet. Soon after, she sits down at the computer, ready to start her daily gaming session. Yuna throws herself headlong into competitive online matches as if her life depended on it. Unfortunately, she ends up losing the match and lets out a heavy sigh of frustration. Her teammates complain in the chat, saying that her gameplay is outdated and old-fashioned. She gets extremely annoyed when younger gamers call her a fossil online. With her throat parched from so much anger, she tries to grab her favorite soda bottle. She is quite disappointed to realize that she has already drunk all the soda that was in the room. Yunha looks out the window dejectedly, realizing she will have to leave the house to buy more. The convenience store bell rings, startling the clerk with the arrival of an unexpected customer. She comes in completely covered by a sheet, looking like a strange little creature, just to buy soda. Back in her room, she breathes a sigh of relief, proud to have accomplished the difficult task of going to the store. Suddenly, a shout of "Delivery!" at the door startles the young woman who was distracted. She walks very quietly to the entrance to check if the delivery man has already left. She takes the bag of food, grateful for the convenience of the deliveries, which were already paid for through the app. The fourth step in their routine involves eating fried chicken while watching live streams. With her belly full, she throws herself into the chair, feeling completely satisfied. But then his expression quickly changes to a serious and quite thoughtful one. She reflects on having wasted an entire year of her life because of her traumas. In fact, she recalls that she didn't give up on everything right at the beginning of her return. She had high hopes of regaining her incredible necromantic powers using special plans. But unfortunately, she realized in the worst possible way that she was completely wrong about that. She tried casting spells in the forest in every way possible, but nothing seemed to work. After a month of failed attempts, the girl gave up and cried in the rain. She knows she could try to awaken as a hunter, but the chance of that happening is minimal. Her thoughts remain distant as she stares boredly at the computer screen. Another news item appears on the screen, highlighting the great success of her sister Sioha as a hunter. Sioha became so famous that she now stars in television commercials and is loved by everyone. Yuna knows she can only live a lazy life, thanks to her older sister's money and status. Suddenly overcome by a strong determination, she slams her fist on the wooden table. She decides with conviction that this lazy and aimless life needs to end today. The young woman pulls a mysterious, bright pink crystal from her pocket, which she had been carefully guarding, with all the materials gathered in her hands. She knows that the time to act has finally come. She recently discovered an important clue that could help her regain her former abilities. This is a low-level magic stone that is charged with death energy. She realizes that if she can use the concentrated energy of this stone, she will be able to activate her necromancy. She takes a deep breath and focuses completely on the ritual, ready to test her daring theory. The young woman extends her hand toward the crystal, focusing her mind to absorb the magic. A mysterious purple smoke begins to rise from a small mound of earth she placed on the ground. The little girl's face lights up with a big smile when she sees that the magic is working. Small noises begin to come from inside the mountain, confirming that the spell really worked. She makes one last effort, concentrating all the remaining energy she has in her body. A huge circle of purple energy shines on the floor of the room, illuminating the entire space. Yunha strains her hardest, screaming as powerful purple magic envelopes her small body. A magnificent explosion of purple light engulfs the room with terrifying force. She starts coughing a lot because of the smoke, realizing she should have performed the ritual outside. The dust begins to settle slowly, revealing that something is finally moving through the fog. A victorious and confident smile spreads across the little necromancer's face as she sees the result. She celebrates with excitement upon realizing that the spell actually worked as planned. The little girl shouts powerfully, ordering the fallen creature to awaken and rise once and for all. She commands that the resentment of the being for losing their head serve as fuel for them to rise again. The legendary Knight Dullahan materializes, but the comical detail is that he's made of fried chicken bones. The tiny creature made of chicken bones makes a cute sound, leaving Yunha somewhat shocked by its size. Yunha tests the little bony warrior by asking him to raise his right hand. She then asks him to raise his left hand, and the little monster obliges sweetly. She realizes that despite its minuscule size, the necromancy invocation was a real success. The young woman celebrates joyfully, raising her hands in the air. As she is able to use her powers again, she begins to dance joyfully in the room, celebrating the official return of the Queen of the Underworld. This experiment with the magic stone was just one of her theories that ended up working out very well. In fact, on Earth, necromancer hunters are considered extremely rare and difficult to find. Everything changed when one day, she came across a live stream from a beginner hunter. This is Songha Yaun, a novice necromancy hunter trying to make it as a streamer. Since the two shared the same class of necromancy, Inha decided to continue watching the broadcast. During the demonstration, her skeleton archer misses his target and hits his own owner in the head. Yan gets extremely angry at her summoning while the chat viewers have fun. Despite her awkwardness and the heavy criticism, the newcomer strives to continue training her monster. Yunhao admires the girl's persistence in the face of criticism and decides to type some helpful advice into the chat. The streamer reads the message on her phone and is quite surprised by the professional advice she received. Yunha's advice detailed how to bury the skeleton and bathe it in the energy of death to strengthen it. Days later, the streamer proudly shows off that she managed to summon a much stronger skeleton warrior. The newcomer was so impressed with Yunha's knowledge that she ended up becoming her dedicated online student. Yayan feels so grateful for the constant advice that she asks if Yunha would like something in return. Yunha seizes the great opportunity and asks her to send some magical stones filled with the energy of death. And that is how the young woman obtained the bright pink crystal that she used in her victorious experiment. Unfortunately, with the end of the invocation, the death energy of the stone was completely exhausted. She gets very excited thinking about telling her sister about her success. But suddenly the phone starts ringing. Seoha opens the bedroom door with a dark and frightening expression that sends Yunha into a panic. The huntress's blue eyes gleamed with rage at the mess she found in the room. She realizes that her little sister ordered takeout and scattered fried chicken bones all over the floor. Furious, Seoha drags the girl across the floor, ordering her to take a bath immediately. As punishment for their disobedience, the consumption of the delivery food is prohibited indefinitely. The story jumps forward a few days, showing a beautiful sunny blue sky over the city. Yunhao is wearing a hood and has a rather sullen expression because of her current situation. She was forced to go grocery shopping in person and thinks it's the worst thing in the world. Seoha's computer mouse broke just as she was about to leave for a multi-day mission. She could wait for her sister to return or order another mouse online, but her anxiety wouldn't allow it. The young woman absolutely needs to play her ranked promotion match today and can't wait. The specific model of mouse she uses is only sold in one large, busy department store. His difficult mission is to get through the crowd without speaking to anyone and secure the new mouse. She walks stealthily, hiding behind the shelves to avoid contact with people. With great care and agility, she finally manages to grab the box containing the desired device. Just when she thinks it's all over, an alarm starts ringing, ordering everyone to evacuate the store. Panic spreads when someone warns that a dungeon seed is about to sprout underground. A desperate employee shouts, warning that the portal will open at any moment. The portal opens violently, releasing an intense red energy throughout the area. Several people fall to the ground, stunned, amidst a terrifying, dark gray fog. Yunha opens her red eyes and realizes that the shop's scenery has completely changed. She looks around in horror and realizes that everyone has been swallowed into a dangerous dungeon. His heart begins to beat very fast with fear as he realizes the seriousness of the situation. The noise of the crying and despair of the people around her begins to make her extremely distressed. Everyone is screaming desperately, asking to call the police. But there is absolutely no signal on their cell phones. She kneels on the floor, covering her ears, unable to bear so much noise and commotion. In her thoughts, she desperately begs everyone to be quiet at once. A man shouts angrily at the people, ordering everyone to be quiet, so as not to attract the monsters from the dungeon. He warns that the monsters haven't yet spread from the boss, and tells everyone to follow him if they want to survive. He reveals that he is a hunter apprentice, while a girl points to Yunha, who remains huddled on the ground. The man coldly tells her to leave her behind, because carrying a useless burden will cause everyone to die. The other survivors agree and run desperately after the apprentice hunter, leaving Yunhao alone. Yunhao finally breathes a sigh of relief on the cold dungeon floor now that the noise has stopped. She grumbles, saying she almost fainted from a headache listening to those noisy people complaining non-stop. She stands up and looks out at the immense, dark hall, wondering how she will get out of that dangerous place alone. She remembers that she carries spare magic stones, but decides to keep them only as a last resort in case of emergency. Suddenly, she remembers a very important detail about a necklace that her sister Sohao had given her. This is a self-defense pendant capable of raising a barrier and sending an immediate distress signal. She fondly remembers when her sister insisted that she always carry the protective pendant. Without hesitation, the little girl uses all her strength to break the yoke and activate the emergency signal. She knows it won't be easy for her sister to get out of the dungeon where she is, but she trusts that she will find a way to come. Meanwhile, in the B3 ranked dungeon, the Sioha squad leader orders everyone to set up camp for the day. The red-haired huntress celebrates excitedly, saying that tomorrow they will finally be able to defeat the boss. The leader reprimands the huntress, warning that a B3 rank is far too dangerous for anyone to let their guard down. The young woman laughs at the warning and says that with Sioha in the group, their guild would never be defeated so easily. Sioha smiles and asks her friend to stop flattering her, because no dungeon is made easy by just one person. Suddenly, Sioha's pendant glows intensely and shatters completely on her chest. The guildmates stare in surprise at the destroyed jewel, knowing exactly what that sign means. The system message in Sioha's mind confirms that her little sister sent an urgent distress signal from Seoul. The huntress is completely paralyzed with despair, while the others try to understand what went wrong. But with her heart racing, she grips her spear tightly, determined to save her family. Without giving any explanation, she leaps swiftly forward, leaving her entire squad confused and behind. She runs at high speed through the dark corridors, ignoring the dangers hidden in the shadows. A horde of terrifying, level B venomous spiders suddenly appears, blocking the hunter's path. Soa remembers when she promised little Yunha that she would protect her from anyone who made her cry. With a swift and brutal movement, she cuts one of the monsters in half with her gleaming spear. The other creatures advance furiously, but the huntress does not retreat for even a second. In fact, she remembers that little Yunha herself used to say that she would beat up anyone for her in the past. Overcome by an overwhelming fury, the young huntress intensifies her attack movements. She strikes relentlessly, tearing apart any venomous spiders that try to approach. The young woman leaps high, unleashing a devastating aerial attack against the creature's nest. An absurd sequence of quick and precise blows destroys the remaining monsters in an instant. The rest of the squad, which was following closely behind, watched that display of power in utter disbelief. The guild warriors stammered that they never imagined she possessed so much hidden strength. They realize with shock that Sioha's true level has long surpassed the rank of an ordinary hunter. With a single devastating blow, she destroys the enormous stone door that blocked the dungeon's exit. She enters the hall imposingly, unconcerned by the approach of more dangerous monsters. On the ceiling, the gigantic boss monster known as the level B puppet spider is revealed. Surrounded by creatures and undead on the ceiling, Sioha focuses her bright blue eyes on the battle to come. She delivers a powerful punch, destroying the skull of a skeleton with extreme ease. The young woman spins her spear at high speed, slicing through each of the opponents who try to stop her from escaping. A massive burst of blue energy consumes the entire area as she eliminates the dungeon boss. She stomps firmly on the ground, her boots stained with monster blood, showing no sign of fatigue. Completely covered in creature blood, she runs relentlessly, mentally begging Yuna to hold on. Back in the other dungeon, a huge and terrifying skeleton monster silently approaches Yunha from behind. Sensing the terrifying presence, the little girl turns around and lets out a sharp scream of utter panic. With tears in her eyes, she trembles in terror, unsure if it's a monster or the survivors from before. To Yuna's surprise, the creature that appeared before her was just a weak, ordinary skeleton soldier. Suddenly, the monster leaps joyfully upon her, giving her a tight hug that frightens her. Yunha fights furiously against the creature, trying to wrest the iron sword from its bony hands. With a precise tug, she finally manages to disarm the insolent skeleton. She lands a powerful blow on the monster's head, complaining that it doesn't respect a veteran necromancer. The skeleton crumbles to pieces on the floor, as she reflects that monsters are much easier to deal with than people. She notices the familiar sound of bones rattling and deduces that the common monsters there are just weak undead. She happily realizes that she has entered a low-level undead dungeon that is basically her territory. strongest necromancer of all feels that familiar, cold energy of death coursing through her veins once more. Suddenly, the noisy girl from before reappears, running and screaming for help, disrupting Yunha's concentration. Yunha notices that only that young woman survived and wonders what happened to the rest of the group. The girl cries desperately, recounting how all her other companions were brutally killed in an instant. Yunha is incredulous, unable to understand how an entire team could have been annihilated so quickly in a place that was theoretically easy to eliminate. The ground begins to tremble violently, indicating that the great threat is rapidly approaching them. She hears a colossal cracking of bones and realizes that the giant monster was only distant at first. Before them emerges a colossal level B skeleton giant, revealing that this dungeon is in fact extremely dangerous. The immense bone monster extends its gigantic hand, forcing the two to run for their lives. The enormous bony hand chases the two girls down the narrow corridor, causing widespread panic. The girl is desperate, thinking she will be captured by the giant creature at any second. Yuna runs, trying to stay calm in order to find a viable survival strategy. Suddenly, she looks back and remembers the little skeleton she had defeated at the very beginning. She pulls out her bright pink crystal, determined to use her famous and devastating corpse, exploding magic. The defeated skeleton's body on the ground begins to glow intensely with a fiery energy. A large explosion hits the giant's leg, opening a perfect gap for them to escape. They manage to get into a very narrow corridor where the giant can't pass, but they realize they are now trapped. Yunha grows impatient listening to the girl's constant crying, which only serves to drain her mental energy. Suddenly, the terrifying sound of rattling bones echoes loudly again from the back of the dark corridor. A new horde of armed skeleton warriors begins marching toward them. Emerging from the shadows, the girl becomes completely desperate and grabs Yunha so tightly that she almost suffocates her. The young woman begs for her life on her knees as the undead aim their weapons at her. A skeleton archer fires a precise arrow, forcing Yunha to dodge quickly. With impressive reflexes, she uses her iron sword to deflect the deadly projectile in mid-air. She feels the impact of the blow and realizes that her current small body is too weak for direct combat. One of their mage opponents conjures an immense fireball, launching the attack in the direction of the two. Yunha reacts quickly, pushing her frightened companion to the ground to save her from the direct impact. The beam of fire grazes past them, illuminating the entire dark corridor with intense heat. The wind from the attack tears Yunha's red hood, leaving her with a small wound on her shoulder. More bone monsters continue to advance relentlessly, blocking any viable escape route in the area. With no other option, the little necromancer runs towards her enemies, brandishing her blade. She uses all her skill to deliver swift blows and destroy the first bone-covered opponents. The young woman lands nimbly on the ground after scattering the pieces of the defeated monsters around the area. To his dismay, an even greater number of the undead then appear without stopping. She realizes something is very wrong, as all the monsters seem to be specifically drawn there. Intrigued by the creature's unusual behavior, she begins searching inside their pockets. The little girl is shocked to realize that the monsters are being attracted by the death energy of her pink crystal. She realizes with guilt that the entire terrible situation was caused by her own magical experiment. Suddenly, the earth begins to tremble again, causing her to lose her balance and almost fall to the ground. Her red eyes widened in terror as she noticed a new, shadowy presence had just emerged. A terrifying, gigantic green ghost head floats in the air, emanating an evil aura. Terrifying, man-eating monster floats menacingly right in front of the desperate girl who remains lying on the ground. Yunha recalls that she never saw that monster on planet Tabi, but recognizes it from videos she watched on the internet. She is surprised to see that the new girl threw herself in front of the creature just to protect it. Yuna finds that behavior completely ridiculous and irrational to adopt in a dungeon. Without hesitation, she runs to stand in front of her colleague, firmly holding her magic energy crystal. The little girl prepares to activate a protective spell, right in the path of the enemy attack. The golden magic shield expands, repelling the terrible, devouring monster with a loud roar. She realizes that her sister's necklace's self-defense barrier worked perfectly to save them. She glares angrily at the green ghost, saying that no one will die in front of the Lady of Death. The devouring monster roars with fury as it is blocked by the immense protective power. Yunha crushes the magic crystal with her hand, declaring that the very existence of that creature is an insult. She unleashes a massive column of purple energy that shoots up, destroying everything on the ceiling of the corridor. With her eyes glowing intensely purple, she prepares to use her ultimate necromancy. She officially activates the ability to summon undead on the battlefield. The portal opens, releasing an immense surge of dark energy under the control of the little necromancer. A gigantic and terrifying bone hand begins to materialize before his eyes. The immense flash of purple energy consumes the entire dark corridor of that dungeon. Yunha coldly orders her powerful new creature to attack the enemies without mercy. The imposing shadow warrior begins to take shape, revealing all his pent-up fury. Before them emerges the terrifying Halloween knight, wielding a gigantic, gleaming sword. One of the dungeon's common skeletons attempts to attack him, raising its iron sword. The summoned knight easily blocks the blow, destroying the opponent's blade instantly. With extremely agile movements, he begins to tear apart all the bone monsters around him. Its giant sword cuts through the air relentlessly, splitting enemies in two. The skull of one of the opposing monsters is completely split in two by the devastating blow. A terrifying, skeletal, dog-like creature roars furiously as it watches its allies fall. The summoned knight's purple eyes gleam, focused on eliminating the approaching new threat. The two monsters collide violently, generating intense bursts of light along the corridor. The Knight of Yunha delivers a devastating punch that completely disintegrates his opponent. He stands imposingly atop a mountain of shattered bone fragments. The girl next to him watches everything, utterly shocked by the knight's terrifying strength. Yuna proudly admits that she is a beautiful creation, but knows that the real problem is only just beginning. The magic stone's energy consumption is too high, and the knight will only be able to fight for a few minutes. With no other alternative, the little girl begins to mentally plead for help, even from the goddess Ceresia. Meanwhile, on the ceiling, the giant skeleton's immense hand tries to find a way to grab them. The colossal monster lands a powerful blow, generating an immense explosion of light within the barrier. The Halloween knight grips the green devourer's head tightly to destroy it. With a precise cut, he eliminates the ghostly green creature once and for all. The impact of the fight causes several enormous rocks to begin collapsing from the dungeon ceiling. Yunha's knight returns to protect her as more pieces of rock fall around them. She tries to plan her next move, but hears a frightening noise indicating the arrival of more danger. The colossal level B skeleton giant reappears, staring at the two with its terrifying red eyes. Yunha points her arm, ordering her warrior to advance and defeat the immense bone monster. But to his dismay, the knight suddenly begins to falter and lose his strength mid-ride. The summoned warrior's body simply disintegrates into purple smoke before it can attack. The little girl panics completely when she sees that the power has run out much sooner than planned. The companion beside her trembles with fear, asking through tears what they will do now without protection. Yunha swallowed hard, realizing with horror that they were truly at risk of dying in that place. The giant's colossal bony hand descends towards them, making the little necromancer fear her tragic end. With tears in her eyes, she tightly covers her face, silently screaming for help from her sister Sioha. Suddenly, a powerful and brilliant blow strikes the giant monster's skull squarely, destroying it completely. Sioha stands majestically before the defeated monster as giant bones fall to the ground. With a serious and fearless look, she brushes away the dust and makes sure the threat has been eliminated. Sioha shouts loudly through the corridors searching for survivors, and Yunha immediately recognizes her voice. The huntress hears Yunha's call and is surprised to see her little sister lying on the ground. Yuna runs desperately towards her sister, throwing herself into her arms in happiness. Sioha holds the distressed girl, asking if she's hurt and ignoring her own exhaustion. Seeing that Yunha's shoulder is bleeding, Seoha panics, unsure of what to do immediately. But the exhaustion from the ritual and the combat takes its toll, and the little girl begins to lose consciousness. Yunha simply faints in Seoha's arms, who screams desperately calling for her. A few days later, news on the internet celebrated Seoha's great achievements in the dungeon. The media reveals that the dungeon was actually level B4 and contained the dreaded Kobold Bane boss. Having fainted, Yunha regrets not having seen any of her sister's magnificent battle. In her room, the little girl reads the comments on the internet, praising Seoha's heroic achievements. Seoha knocks on her bedroom door and affectionately invites her for a walk outdoors. Yuna uses her supposed traumas as an excuse, and her understanding sister agrees to let her rest. The little girl feels a bit guilty for worrying Seoha, but she knows she needs time for her plans. Putting the guilt aside, she focuses on an important lesson she learned from the whole experience. She discovered that all her former power accumulated in Tebe remains fully valid in her mind. However, she knows she will need a lot of energy if she wants to manifest her full strength again. Tired of thinking about it, she decides to simply ask her student Song Ha Yan to send more magic stones. She sits down at her computer and refocuses completely on her beloved online gaming routine. The young woman thinks that if she could officially awaken as a hunter, things would be very different. Suddenly, the screen shows yet another defeat in his competitive match, ruining his good mood. Then she loses another match in a crushing fashion, becoming completely furious in the process. Unable to bear the series of defeats any longer, she begins to punch the air and thrash about in her chair. In the living room, Seoha watches television and is quite startled by the angry shouts coming from the bedroom. Seoha runs away worried, but Yunha just cries because she failed her promotional series even with the new mouse. The story unfolds showing the calm movement of people walking through the bustling streets of Seoul. In a charming local cafe, someone waits silently for a very important meeting. This is streamer Song Ha Yan, who appears extremely nervous while fiddling with her phone. She trembles with anxiety, unsure how to act in front of the person who is about to arrive. The rookie C-rank hunter never imagined she would actually meet her mysterious mentor in person. Suddenly, an elegant woman appears, enveloped in a mysterious and powerful magical purple aura. Hi. Yayon is completely paralyzed by the immense pressure of energy emanating from the newcomer. The elegant woman walks calmly towards the table, drawing the attention of everyone present to her. Yan's surprise, that woman is none other than the feared S-rank necromancer named Helena. The scene shows a glowing dungeon portal opening in the middle of a concrete corridor. The warriors celebrate the mission's success, praising Yan's performance and progress. She awkwardly thanks him, saying that she actually still has a lot to learn on her journey, thanks to the valuable advice of her mysterious mentor. She gained a legion of new fans on the internet. She knows that all her success is due to Hell Lord 12 and wonders who this wonderful person might be. The young woman walks thoughtfully, trying to decipher the true identity of her master in Korea. Suddenly, a terrifying and unbelievable possibility crosses the hunter's mind. She begins to strongly suspect that her mysterious master, Hell Lord, is actually the famous Helena. A few days later, the young woman begins another of her usual live streams from her room. Suddenly, the streamer is interrupted by a colossal donation of 80 million won sent by Helena. Her eyes widen in complete shock when she sees that absurd amount of money on the screen. Holding her head in panic, she tries to understand the real reason behind such a grand gift. In the donation message, Helena mentions that she will be visiting Korea next week and invites her to a meeting. Helena calmly sips her tea, revealing that she has long wanted to meet Yaon in person. Helena politely thanks Yaon for accepting the sudden invitation to the meeting. The S-rank hunter reveals that she has several important questions to ask, and the young woman tells her to feel free to ask. Yaon still can't believe that the famous Helena actually showed up to talk to her. Helena asks her to stop staring at her like that and inquires about the red skeleton from a previous video. Helena curiously asks where the idea for the design of the fearsome boxer skeleton called Massa came from. Jan is very confused by the question and begins to suspect that Helena might not be her mysterious master. She reflects that the playful behavior of her true master is completely out of sync with Helena's elegant demeanor. With great care, the young woman decides to reveal the truth about her surprising invocations. She admits that she wasn't the original creator of those designs, and that everything she knows she learned from her true master. Helena's green eyes narrowed with curiosity upon hearing about the existence of another master of necromancy. Jan stammers, saying that she actually knows almost nothing about the true identity of this mysterious master. Helena silently understands, assuming the matter as a major trade secret. A dark and terrifying aura of death energy begins to envelop Helena's body for a brief moment. She gives an intriguing smile that makes the atmosphere of the place quite tense and cold. Helena decides not to press the matter any further and suggests they change the subject while taking another sip of tea. Suddenly, with a gentle smile, she asks if Jan has someone she likes romantically. The conversation continues in a much lighter and more relaxed manner in that private coffee room. The meeting comes to an end, and the two say goodbye, expressing immense gratitude for the pleasant company. Helena nods, saying she'll get in touch again and hopes to have fun at their next meeting. Jan bows respectfully, wishing the powerful S-rank hunter a safe return. The young streamer is extremely radiant and happy to have participated in such an incredible event. She mentally celebrates because, in addition to valuable advice, Helen also gave her a beautiful farewell gift. While walking down the street, Helena takes out her phone and makes a call to ask for a special favor. She coldly orders them to thoroughly investigate everyone who has any connection with Jan. With a sharp gaze, she demands that they uncover everything behind the mysterious master, no matter the method required. Back at the apartment, Ina overhears her sister Sioha talking about an important hunter's event. Sioha shows the invitation, explaining that several influential people from all over the world will be present at that luxurious party. Suddenly, the huntress suggests that Inha accompany her to the event, leaving the little girl completely desperate at the idea. The little necromancer throws herself at her sister's feet, crying and begging not to have to go to such a crowded place. Sioha tries to calm her down by saying that she could just relax and enjoy the 5-star hotel during the trip. Yunha recalls that in Tebi she lived on the brink of death and never had the luxury of even dreaming of resting in a hotel. She remembers sleeping on the hard ground outdoors with the goddess Ceresia and decides to accept the great opportunity for luxury. With a mischievous smile on her face, the little girl agrees to go, leaving her sister quite surprised by the quick change in attitude. Sioha celebrates happily and says that they need to go to the mall immediately to buy new clothes for the trip. At the mall, Ina gets very annoyed when she's forced to try on a frilly dress that she hates. The story moves forward to the grand night of the event, showing the welcoming toast with glasses of champagne. The luxurious ballroom is completely packed with famous hunters, celebrities, and billionaires from all over the world. Meanwhile, in the cozy hotel room, Yunha enjoys her solitude playing happily on her laptop. But suddenly his online guildmate announces that he will have to work late, canceling their gaming session. She becomes extremely upset and angrily types, cursing her colleague for letting her down. Determined to prove her worth, she starts a solo match promising to show all her true veteran skill. A short time later, the screen displays a large defeat sign, causing the little girl to fall face first to the ground in utter despair. She slams her fist on the table furiously, unable to accept having lost so humiliatingly in her favorite game. With her stomach rumbling with hunger, she lies down on the floor wondering when room service will bring her dinner. Immediately afterwards, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the hotel room, bringing back the little girl's good humor. Excited about dinner, she grabs her white sheet and runs quickly towards the bedroom door. Wrapped in a sheet, she shouts, announcing that she herself will open the door to receive the food delivery. She unlocks the door very slowly, her heart pounding with anticipation for her meal. But as she opens the door a crack, Her red eyes widen in shock at what she sees. Before her appears the figure of a man in a black suit, with his fists clenched in a menacing manner. Yunhai immediately realizes that the man standing in front of her is not a hotel employee. Looking at the intruder's face, she notices that he has red hair and a rather curious expression. Peeking under her hotel sheet, she gathers her courage and coldly asks who he really is. Immediately afterwards, she realizes a very important detail. She understands that she didn't stutter when speaking to a stranger. Without giving the intruder time to respond, Ina throws the white sheet in his face in a swift motion. She prepares to fight knowing that her terrible social phobia only disappears in two specific situations. The first of these situations is when he is near his sister, and the second is when his opponent is a terrible monster. This means that the creature standing right in front of her at that moment is not an ordinary human. Yuna glares at him angrily and asks what he truly is, demanding to know if he is human. The red-haired man's eyes widened in surprise at having been so easily discovered by a little girl. Yuna clenches her fists and focuses completely, keeping her guard up to face the dangerous opponent. Yunha stares at the intruder with a serious look and calls him over to settle the score. She asks him directly what he really is, and if he is truly human. The boy is completely surprised and speechless upon hearing the little girl's question. Yunha clenched her fists in irritation, expecting an immediate response from the intruder. The intruder lets out a soft sigh and gives a mysterious smile at the situation. He starts laughing loudly, leaving the little necromancer completely irritated and impatient. The man begins to stroke her head, boasting of his own monstrous power. Yunha finds his attitude ridiculous and suddenly realizes she's seen that face before. She finally remembers seeing the guy's face on a TV news report. She recognizes S-rank Hunter Choi Hammon, who immediately asks about Seolha's whereabouts. He asks why she's being so wary and says he only came looking for Seolha. Yunha explains that her sister went to the event and asks if she hasn't returned to her room yet. Hammon is quite confused because Seolha had promised to drink with everyone after the event. A mysterious hand touches the control screen to open a secret passage in the location. The door to a large training room opens, revealing a lurking silhouette. Seolha enters the darkened room and demands to know why she was summoned there. The mysterious Helena slowly turns to face the newly arrived huntress. His intense green eyes gleam in a cold and quite menacing way. Helena analyzes Seolha, thinking about how their paths ended up crossing. She recalls that Yun's master gave valuable advice through online chat. Since the account's IP address was linked to Seolha's house, the main suspicion fell on her sister. Helena releases a purple mist from her boots and challenges her rival to guess what she wants. She begins to float, enveloped in a dense, malevolent energy, to intimidate Seolha. Seolha observes the display of power without backing down and maintaining her firm stance. She makes it clear that she doesn't have time to waste on silly jokes. Helena notices her reaction and deduces that Seolha must not be the mysterious necromancer. Helena sends her spirits against Seolha and realizes that she is having difficulty dodging them. Suddenly, Seolha grabs one of the tormented souls, showing that she's not going to make things easy. Helena is quite surprised to see the hunter's determination and physical strength. Seolha destroys the spiritual projection with her bare hands without showing any effort. The villain finds that attitude amusing and decides to propose a quick training fight. She suggests they pretend to have met by chance, so they can practice a little together. Seolha immediately accepts the challenge and draws her powerful combat spear. Both take their positions in the large hall, ready to begin the direct confrontation. Helena attacks first, summoning several gigantic hands of purple energy. Seolha leaps with agility, cutting through the spiritual attacks with precise movements. Helena dodges the blows at high speed, maintaining control of the situation. Meanwhile, Yuna screams desperately, demanding to be put back on the ground. Hammon runs carrying the girl on his back, saying they need to find Seolha quickly. The hunter warns that he sensed a strong murderous intent hang in the air at the hotel. Yunha pretends not to be awakened, even knowing the real danger her sister is in. Hammon finds it strange that she didn't wake up immediately after returning to Earth. Yunha is pensive and frustrated, not understanding why her powers remain sealed. They spot black smoke rising from the hotel's training room building. Hammond explains that the location is frequently used by high-level hunters. The boy warns that they are going to fly there, leaving the girl completely terrified. He focuses his blue energy into his feet, preparing to take a gigantic leap. They shoot through the air at high speed, while the little girl screams in terror. Hammond lands with full force on the roof of the building, causing a huge impact. The little girl gets completely dizzy and nauseous after that insane plane trip. Hammond stares at the completely destroyed training room and is horrified by the trail of destruction. Suddenly, he notices something worrying in the smoke and is completely paralyzed with fright. Yunha notices the imminent danger and shouts, warning that a terrible magical attack is coming their way. A devastating wave of purple energy strikes the area with brutal force, hurling them both away. Hammond uses his own body as a protective shield to ensure the little girl is not hurt by the explosion. The hunter gets up coughing amidst the smoke, unable to understand what is really happening there. He spots Sioha wielding her spear and is surprised to find that she is facing a powerful opponent. Helena turns her attention away from the fight and stares at the newcomer with a look of astonishment and curiosity. Yunha notices the villain staring intently at her and begins to suspect she's somehow been discovered. Helena decides to end the training right there, saying that the fight has gone too far for both of them. She activates her special ability, creating a strong whirlwind of purple smoke to escape the location. Saohao is extremely confused by her rival's sudden escape and immediately runs to help her sister. Without wasting any time, Siohao pinches Yunha's cheeks, relieved to see that her youngest sister is safe and sound on the floor. Sioha stares at Alina very seriously, demanding explanations about her presence at that training location. Helena flicks Hammond on the forehead and replies mockingly that she was just doing a light workout. She walks calmly through the ruins and vows to pay for all the damage caused to the building. With a cynical smile on her face, the powerful necromancer bids farewell, announcing that she is already leaving the hotel. Helena leaps from the top of the building surrounded by an intense, bright purple aura of power. She surprises everyone by summoning a gigantic skeleton bird to fly majestically through the sealed night. Sioha gets furious and starts giving Hammond a huge scolding for putting her sister in such danger. There's even a scolding for little Inha, who tries to justify herself, but ends up completely cowering in fear. While Hammond tries to defend himself against the accusations, Helena flies peacefully under the light of the full moon. The S-rank hunter flashes a victorious and rather enigmatic smile during her night flight. She celebrates mentally, absolutely certain that she has finally found the true necromancer master. Back in her hotel room, Inha throws herself onto the bed, exhausted, feeling like she almost lost her life. She complains about the absurd number of problems she had to face in such a short period of time. The little girl blames the meddlesome Hammond for making her go through so much embarrassment in front of everyone on the street. At least she breathes a sigh of relief knowing that he went out with his sister and won't bother her anytime soon. She begins to reflect on why she was able to converse so calmly with the red-haired boy. What intrigues her most is the fact that most of those who return awaken immediately. Ceresia warned her about the temporary loss of abilities, but the other hunters don't seem to be affected by it. She wonders, frustrated, why she's the only one who came back weak and is still treated like an anxious child. Yunha stares at her small hand, suspecting that the system of this world is deliberately limiting her power. She tries to understand who might be behind this mysterious barrier limiting her abilities. Tired of so many doubts, she begins to toss and turn in bed, complaining of a severe headache. Determined to forget her worries, she gets up with total focus, ready to start her video game session. On the computer screen appears her exotic and muscular warrior fairy avatar, wielding a gleaming sword. The little necromancer begins the battle by shouting and commanding her allies against a terrible red dragon. She types desperately, demanding a cure from the team, while the doorbell in her room starts ringing repeatedly. Yunhao ignores the noise of the door annoyed by the stupidity of her allies who keep falling during the match. Suddenly, a mysterious and dense purple smoke begins to trickle from under the bedroom door. A hand in a purple glove grips the doorknob, unlocking the electronic lock in an eerie silence. Oblivious to the danger, Yunha celebrates her victory in the first phase, but is startled when she senses a presence behind her. A mysterious hand suddenly appears and closes the laptop lid, interrupting the girl's gaming session. Yunha has a fit of rage, screaming indignantly, not understanding who dared to interfere with her ranked promotion. But when she turns around, she is completely paralyzed with terror upon recognizing the serious face of the dreaded Helena. The intruder says that no one answered the door and calmly asks if they can talk for a bit. Wrapped in her hotel sheet, Ina trembles with panic, awaiting the dreaded revelation from the S-rank hunter. Helena gets straight to the point and asks if the little girl is deliberately hiding her true magical power. She reveals that she already knows about Yunha's return, and that she is the true mentor behind Yan's success. Yunha is completely baffled as to how Helena discovered her secret identity so quickly. Helena confesses with a smile that she hates being curious, especially when the subject involves necromancy. She tells the little girl not to be scared, but the fact that she was investigated terrifies her even more. Helena demands a clear answer, and Yuna begins to sweat, unsure of what she should reveal to her. The little girl hesitates, afraid that the S-rank hunter is plotting something evil against her. Helena notices the girl's silence and decides she will need to use a more direct method to get answers. She focuses her purple energy into her hands, ready to extract the answers directly from Yunha's soul. Yunha panics completely and tries to scream to stop the terrible ritual, but it's too late. The little girl's red eyes begin to glow under the influence of Helena's powerful magic. Helena suddenly finds herself in a dark and enigmatic dimension as she tries to invade the little girl's mind. With a determined look, the villain prepares to extract any secret that may be hidden there. She commands the tormented souls to reveal the whole truth about the past and the strength of the little necromancer. Suddenly, the magic strikes the girl's soul, but encounters something completely unexpected. Helena feels a strong spiritual impact and is completely surprised by what she has just found. The magical attack collides with an extremely resistant barrier protecting Yunha's soul. She realizes with shock that an absurd force is blocking access and protecting the girl's secrets. Several bright currents merge from nowhere to contain and neutralize the energy of Helena's death. The S-rank hunter recoils in fear, admitting she has never seen such powerful magical chains in her life. She notes that these chains serve specifically to seal and conceal the true power of the soul. Helena gives a nervous smile, realizing that the situation is much more complex than she had imagined. Driven by her obsessive curiosity, she decides to force the barrier to see what's behind the seal. She commands her spirits to use all their available strength to break the chains once and for all. The collision of energies generates a devastating explosion that repels the invader in an extremely violent manner. She is utterly horrified to realize that her own death energy was so easily suppressed. Helena wipes the sweat from her face, determined to continue the attack, even knowing the terrible risks to her mind. She tries to force her way in once more, wanting to see what lies hidden deep within that soul. A massive discharge of red energy explodes at the slightest touch against the protective barrier of the seal. Suddenly, a deafening clamor from thousands of agonizing souls consumes Helena's entire mind. Skeletal faces and cries of despair echo round, leaving the atmosphere utterly terrifying. The voices pled for mercy, revealing the true horror of the underworld sealed within. Helena clutched her head, feeling unbearable pain as if her brain were about to split in two. A terrifying shadowy claw emerges from the depths and grips Helena's face with extreme force. Yunha's shadowy projection manifests itself, calling the invader an insect in a monstrous voice. The terrifying entity coldly warns that Helena is sealing her own fate by attempting to defy it. Helena cries in utter terror upon realizing that her life is in real danger from that overwhelming force. In a panic, she tries to quickly undo the connection spell to save her mind from total destruction. A huge wave of dark smoke explodes, repelling Helena, who falls to her knees on the bedroom floor. Yunho regains consciousness, breathless and quite frightened. Without understanding what has just happened, the girl tries to speak, saying she was about to answer, but realizes Helena's critical condition. The S-rank hunter trembles in terror, huddled on the ground, unable to contain the shock she has just suffered. With tears in her eyes and completely distraught, she tries to catch her breath after the mental trauma. Helena murmurs in disbelief as she realizes that the legendary necromancer has truly lost all her former power. She explains that Yunha's immense power remains sealed within her soul and can be recovered upon awakening. Helena promises to give all the necessary support to help Yunha regain her former abilities. Yuna thinks the proposal is great, but becomes very suspicious when the villain says she wants to ask a favor. The S-rank hunter stares at her with a serious and melancholic look, demonstrating great determination. Yunha swallowed hard, quite apprehensive and curious to know what Helena's request would be. Helena surprises the girl by begging on her knees to be accepted as her necromancy disciple. The little necromancer is completely paralyzed and speechless, unable to believe what she heard. She looks puzzled, not understanding how a powerful S-rank fighter could want to become a child student. Yu lies so incredulous at the idea of having Helena as a disciple that she stammers, not knowing what to say. The conversation is suddenly interrupted by Siohao, who opens the bedroom door looking for her little sister. Sohao finds the place strangely messy and asks if anyone has been there, but realizes that Helena has already disappeared. Yuna rests her face thoughtfully in her hand, while her sister complains about a strange burning smell in the air. A few days pass after the big event, and the sister's routine returns to the usual comfort of home. Lying in bed, Yunha recalls a small recent incident that changed her perspective on things. She finally gets to see the status screen that only awakened hunters can see. The girl gets annoyed when she notices that her status screen is empty and has no useful skills listed. However, ever since Helena tried to invade her mind, she began to notice some flaws in the seal. She tried to ask Helena to force the seal again, but the villain refused, terrified and with a pale face. With no other alternative to break the seal, Ina laments being trapped in her room again. Suha shouts from the kitchen, announcing that dinner has arrived just as the girl was planning her future. A brilliant idea suddenly pops into Yuna's mind, and she jumps out of bed with great excitement. She clenches her fist victoriously, declaring aloud that she has finally found a way out of her seal. Shortly after, the two sisters sit down together at the dinner table to enjoy a delicious fried chicken. Sioha becomes worried when she notices that her youngest daughter is eating very little and asks if she is sick. Yuna faces her older sister with all the seriousness in the world and reveals that she has finally awakened. The shock is so great that Sioha drops the piece of fried chicken from her hand directly onto the table. The girl knows that's only half the truth, but she knows she needs to lie to convince her sister. She is determined to become an official hunter, so she can frequent the dungeons without problems. Sioha slams her hand on the table, startled, demanding to know the exact moment this awakening occurred. Sioha asks what her magic class is, and Inha nervously replies that she has become a necromancer. Sioha is suspicious of the answer and asks if the youngest is lying, or if she doesn't really trust her. Sioha deeply regrets saying that her greatest fear has just come true in her family. Yunha notices the disbelief and says she will prove her skill using the materials she has on the table. She reaches out over the chicken bones and begins to release a mysterious purple energy. Sioha's blue eyes widen as she realizes that her little sister really knows how to use necromancy. The veteran hunter is speechless when faced with a phenomenon she considered completely impossible. Under the spell of magic, the chicken remains begin to float and join together in a ghostly fashion. Yunha focuses all her spiritual strength to give life to her small undead creature. With a whisper, she activates her classic spell to complete the process of summoning the bones. An intense purple light shines in the middle of the dining table, enveloping the food remains on the plate. The strong wind of magic ruffles Sioha's hair as she watches everything in a state of complete shock. Yunha starts coughing a lot from the smoke, remembering that performing this ritual in an enclosed space is bad. Even while choking, she proudly points to the result of her incredible summoning spell. Sioha stares at the creature that has just appeared and feels a terrible chill in her stomach at the result. Before them stands a tiny warrior made of chicken bones who screams in a rather cute way. A short time later, the little bone monster simply crumbles into dust on the table. Sioha is astonished to realize that her little sister actually managed to successfully perform a summoning. Yunha seizes the moment of surprise to demand that her sister take her to register as a hunter. To the girl's surprise, Sioha immediately refuses and forbids any registration as a hunter. Sioha explains that the most crucial skill for a true hunter is good group communication. She uses a soccer match as an example and says that the girl wouldn't even be able to ask for the ball. The veteran hunter argues that acting antisocially in dangerous dungeons is a fatal mistake. Sioha knows she doesn't have much moral authority to talk about this, but she wants to prevent her sister from suffering the same fate she did. Sioha decides to forbid the idea, stating that a girl so shy wouldn't be able to handle the pressure of hunting. Yunha clenched her fist tightly, feeling extremely frustrated and powerless in the face of the prohibition. Noticing the youngest daughter's sadness, Sioha softens her tone of voice and asks the reason for her obsession. The little girl hesitates for a moment and prepares to give a rather unexpected answer. She sadly confesses that she only wishes to become a hunter so she can live like an ordinary person. Sioha stares seriously at her younger sister, pondering the real reason behind her desire to become a hunter. Sioha thinks the girl just wants to stop being a burden and overcome her difficulties independently. But in truth, Yunha's only wish is to stop living as an idle dependent on her older sister. Sioha takes a deep breath and warns that she won't completely prevent the girl from trying to pursue a career as a hunter. The veteran hunter extends her index finger in an intimidating manner, imposing a single, rigid condition. With a rather firm expression, she makes it clear that Yunha will need to complete this challenge before anything else. The next day they go to the huge, bustling, and hunter training center run by the government. Yunha becomes extremely nervous, biting her nails anxiously in the presence of so many strangers. Her legs tremble uncontrollably in the classroom when the instructor finally calls her registered name. The little girl screams in fright, drawing the attention of all the students and surprising the teacher with the scare. She covers her mouth with her hands, stammering, apologizing as she feels a strong urge to vomit. The girl runs out of the classroom in despair, while the other students wonder what happened. Yuna runs straight to the bathroom stall, suffering from severe nausea due to her terrible anxiety. She wipes her mouth, exhausted, thinking about how impossible it will be to keep the promise she made to her sister earlier. Sioha demanded that she enter the training center and make at least 3 new friends in order to hunt. To the little necromancer, all those strange people seemed like nothing more than monsters that drained her energy. Her mornings are filled with tiring and lengthy theoretical classes that she is forced to attend and take notes on. In the afternoon, she endures intense practical combat training against experienced instructors. But the hardest and most painful part of this whole training routine is the constant feeling of nausea. The youngest daughter ended up gaining the infamous reputation of being the girl who is always feeling unwell in the hallways. Sioha firmly repeated that she would only grant Hunter permission after she had won over her new friends. Yunha cries in frustration in her hotel room, not knowing how to approach someone in that state. She begs for this terrible discomfort to at least disappear from her body once and for all. Suddenly, she remembers a very special item kept in the drawer that may be her only salvation. This is the brilliant ring with a green jewel that Helena gave her as a gift before she left. Helena called her aside in the hotel lobby on the day they said their mysterious goodbyes. The S-rank hunter handed over the valuable item, stating that it would be of great help on her journey. She explained that the jewelry calms the mind, allowing one to converse with anyone for 10 minutes a day. Helena earnestly warned about the dangers of exceeding the daily limit for using the powerful magic ring. The villain laughed provocatively, suggesting she tested herself to see the cute side effect of the ring. Yunha found that reaction suspicious, but realizes she now has no other option but to use the device. She puts on the ring, determined to prove to her sister that she can make lots of new friends at camp. The little girl arrives at the cafeteria looking like a real zombie. So tired from her morning training, sitting alone in the cafeteria, she realizes with frustration that it's already the third day, and she still doesn't have any friends. Yunho recalls that in her childhood everyone was terrified of her because of her violent, fighting-prone temperament. Suddenly, she notices a boy at the next table complaining about the large number of bones in his fish. The other members ignore the boy's request, leaving a bored atmosphere among the group of students having lunch. A glint appears in Yunhe's eyes as she recognizes a golden opportunity to use her cute necromancy. She activates the mental stabilization ring, feeling a wave of courage and calm wash over her mind instantly. The boy is startled when he sees the shy little girl suddenly approach his dining table. Yunha surprises everyone by speaking calmly and proposing to remove all the bones from her colleague's fish. Without hesitation, she touches the food, releasing a soft purple mist that leaves the boy completely astonished. Under the command of her necromantic magic, the entire fish spine slides off the plate by itself. The students at the next table watch the inexplicable phenomenon with wide, astonished eyes. The group celebrates, finding the trick incredible, and soon they start asking her to clean their dishes as well. Everyone starts happily praising her, saying she's an amazing and very fun person in the group. The little girl is overjoyed to be taking her first and victorious step towards a successful social life. The following day, the group of students from the camp takes a guided tour of a beautiful local memorial park. The instructor takes the floor in front of the monument, explaining about the losses of hunters in the past. He earnestly warns that many brave warriors continue to lose their lives in dungeons to this day. The instructor asks everyone to pay their respects to the dead in front of the large memorial monument. Yunha observes the cemetery with a thoughtful gaze, realizing the seriousness of a hunter's work. She notes that there is no better place than that cemetery to accumulate the energy of death. Suddenly, she shudders all over as she feels a sinister presence staring at her from atop a tomb. She spots the silhouette of a red-haired woman sitting peacefully atop a tombstone. Yunha wonders if that figure is a living person or the lost soul of a deceased hunter. She is shocked to notice that Chaitwa in soul exudes an incredibly strong aura of presence. This is the story of a legendary S-rank hunter who died during a difficult international expedition. As he ponders why the soul persists in the world of the living, his green ring begins to glow brightly. The little girl panics when she notices that Helena's ring activated on its own, without any command from her. A strong magical energy begins to rise up her legs, threatening to attract the spirits of the place. Yunha's eyes widened in fright, realizing she wouldn't be able to contain the fury of that active magic. The sudden impact of the magical energy causes her to fall backward onto the asphalt in front of everyone. Her fellow campers rush anxiously to help her up from the ground after the fall. She looks at the ring and realizes with astonishment that the soul of the legendary huntress has been sealed within the jewel. Yunha decides to use this great opportunity to thoroughly study the soul of the huntress trapped in the ring. The professor points to the blue portal and gives the final instructions for the start of training inside the dungeon. The novice hunters cautiously advance through the dark stone corridors, using torches. Suddenly, one of the instructors draws his iron blade to repel an attack coming from the shadows. Several hunters in training fiercely battle the terrifying insect monsters that emerge from there. They find the boss's large door, and the instructors warn them that they will enter alone for the combat. Yunha begins to tremble with panic, cause the recharge time of her protective ring has not yet finished. Sung Min warns the group that he's sensing something quite strange and tense in the dungeon's energy. He notices that the flow of magical energy in the area is too weak for a common level boss. The other members begin to agree, remembering that the instructors had commented on this. Suddenly a loud bang echoes, and the immense stone door of the dungeon slams shut, blocking the exit. The instructors who remained outside stepped forward, their weapons drawn with seriousness in their hands. The squad leader freezes completely upon seeing a totally unexpected scene before them. The main hall of the boss is completely deserted, and there is no sign of any monsters in the area. They are trying to understand how a D-rank boss could disappear and conceal their magical presence. Outside, Yuna feels a terrible tremor of energy coming from beneath the dungeon floor. The hallway floor begins to crack, releasing an intense and frightening bright green smoke. A powerful seal of magical chains blocks the entrance, trapping the instructors in the room. Panic spreads and the student leader orders everyone to adopt a defensive stance like Yunha's. A colleague asks, startled, if the bone ant on his shoulder was a summoning she had created. Yunha stares confusedly at the little creature of bones that seems to be just as scared as the humans. The group of students screams in despair as they notice a vast trail of destruction approaching them. A gigantic horde of thousands of warrior ants begins to climb the walls of the corridor. The terrifying insect monsters roar deafeningly, initiating a deadly siege against them. A massive horde of monstrous ants starts climbing the wall and startles the young warriors. The giant insect roars, showing its sharp jaws as it charges toward the group of rookies. In a hurry, the little girl holds a small bone monster with her hand equipped with the glowing ring. The strong warrior slashes one of the monsters in mid-air with his sword, protecting the other mages behind him. The little necromancer notices the cooldown time is over and gets ready to use her red magic. At that moment, she activates the power of the special ring and begins releasing a dense purple mist around herself. Exhaustion hits hard, and the girl starts breaking into a cold sweat as she tries to control the massive magical energy. With a determined look, the young girl decides to risk it all and focuses her attention on the ongoing battle. Then, she shouts for her teammate to use her ice magic to quickly freeze all the enemies. The mage follows the command and casts a bright blue freezing blast against the cave monsters. Several giant insects end up completely frozen in ice blocks and start falling from the ceiling. Right then, the swordsman watches the scene, impressed by how effective the little girl's tactic is. Holding a bright pink crystal, the necromancer prepares to perform her great spirit summoning. The group leader shouts, telling everyone to finish off the fallen creatures to gather the intact shells. The little girl gives a smirk, realizing the elite warrior perfectly understood her plan. With that, the rookies attack the fallen targets to pile up the remnants on the ground as quickly as possible. Then, she approaches the fallen ants on the ground, ready to start her intimidating spirit ritual. Channeling the energy, she casts her spell and commands the remnants to rise as shadow servants. The other students are in shock seeing that spooky display of shadow magic. Soon, several white skeletal ants stand up and surround the little master, following her orders. With a fierce shout, the young necromancer orders her shadow army to overwhelm all the enemies there. The summoned shells charge hard at the enemy horde, starting a fierce clash in the tunnel. Meanwhile, the instructor strikes the magic barrier hard, trying to break the chains at the entrance. The sword strike fails completely, and he complains that the spirit seal hasn't even moved an inch. At that moment, the master hears the voice of the rookie warrior from the other side of the huge destroyed stone door. The boy explains they fell into a trap and asks if the students outside are okay. He says they took care of all the monsters and explains those creatures were only low rank. Then, the master is shocked to learn that the trainees themselves defeated the whole horde without any help. The young man shows a mental map and points out that he found a route where only the students can pass. The instructor trembles, noticing that the bizarre dungeon seems to be luring the rookies into a trap. The swordsman suggests waiting for the portal to break, but his teammate warns that it would put civilians at risk. With that, the teacher remembers that even though they fight well, they are still just students who need protection. The master insists on falling back, but the mage in the green hood asks him to trust the rookie group's strength. She argues they have already faced real battles, and that a weak boss won't be a problem for the team. Then, the teacher remembers he trained those young ones to act like true, fearless warriors. He finally gives in and tells the boy to choose the best warriors to invade the final boss room. The young warrior turns to his teammates and asks for volunteers for the battle to raise their hands right now. The first volunteer is Songkyo, an impulsive guy known as the guild's great secret weapon. Right after we have Yuna, a famous digital influencer who decides to join the scout trio. The other students are too scared from the previous battle and prefer to stay behind waiting on the stairs. The leader analyzes the members and realizes he needs one more person to complete the perfect attack team. Huddled on the ground, the little girl complains about the skeletal monsters and mentally begs to go home already. But the warrior reaches out his hand with a smile and says the little necromancer's help will be essential for the mission. With that, the makeshift group of 4 warriors moves forward, surrounded by the army of awakened ants. The little girl knows her class is strong because her minions serve as both living shields and attackers. The leader attacks the weakened enemies while the bone monsters absorb all the damage from the opponents. At that moment, the girl celebrates that her army is easily restocked with the new fallen targets from the battle. Several dark phantoms and skeletal ants march right behind, maintaining full protection for the team. Yuna asks if the little girl wants to walk closer, but she replies she prefers to keep her distance. The swordsman complains about bringing a useless kid, while Yuna reminds him she made the whole fight easier. Without the active power of the ring, the little girl decides to fall back a bit, so she isn't so close to the shadow minion. Then, she gets distracted and ends up bumping face first into the muscular back of her own summoned servant. Annoyed, the little girl complains about the sudden stop, but the shadow monster points forward in silence. Right then, the swordsman points to a huge rustic wooden door that seems to be the boss room. Very carefully, the scout leader places his hand on the cold wood to check for danger inside. Then, the warriors push the great gates, revealing a golden glow coming from inside the place. Inside, they spot the silhouette of a fearsome lizard warrior standing on a magic seal. The impulsive young guy with axes smiles arrogantly, claiming the opponent looks way too weak. Without hesitating, he dashes forward, ignoring the retreat warning from the leader, who tries to hold back his impatience. With a swift strike, the warrior hits the reptilian enemy, dealing a heavy blow with his sharp axes. He starts laughing out loud, celebrating how easy the attack was without noticing the opponent's trap. But the injured monster shows a creepy smile, revealing that the physical damage was nothing but an illusion. Confident, the warrior steps forward to deliver one more finishing strike against the large-scaled creature. He shouts fiercely, demanding the opponent's defeat, while bringing down his weapon with all his might. But the strike only hits the air, cutting through the empty room without causing any real harm to the target. Confused, the warrior wonders where the opponent went and notices a blue glow appear right behind him. A terrifying blast of lightning strikes the boy with intense force, making him scream in extreme pain. The electrical explosion consumes the air in the room with a devastating force that scares the scouts at the entrance. The young swordsman yells desperately for his teammate upon seeing the power of that destructive spell. The digital influencer grinds her teeth in anger, complaining about her teammate's foolish attitude. The little necromancer watches everything with disdain and wonders mentally if that warrior is an idiot. She analyzes that he ran in like a fool shouting glitchy phrases, and ended up falling easily for the enemy's illusion. Even though he's coughing a lot, the impulsive guy stays on his feet, showing he has great physical endurance. The lizard warrior raises his glowing staff, proving he's no ordinary low-rank opponent. He starts gathering a massive amount of blue electricity around his spirit weapon. A huge blast of lightning is fired at the injured warrior, who doesn't have time to dodge the strike. The young man takes the direct impact of the destructive magic with his teeth clenched in pure determination. The immense electrical discharge pushes the boy against the wall, generating a blue flash all over the scene. The swordsman anxiously asks if the little girl is ready yet, while she asks the group for patience. She explains seriously that only the impulsive axe warrior can handle such destructive power. With that, She uses the boy as live bait to calmly analyze all of the opponent's attack patterns. Feeling the pain, the boy shouts furiously, asking why the rest of the group is just watching the fight from afar. The necromancer mocks the situation, saying he should pay more attention to the dangers around him. But before she can answer, the warrior is hit again by a powerful electrical beam from the adversary. The impact throws the boy far away, making him yell in pain as he flies violently against the stone floor. The exhausted warrior collapses face first onto the ground right in front of the little girl and her bone servants. Ignoring her allies' fall, the young girl carefully analyzes the mysterious magic formation drawn in the room. She notices the presence of glowing totems at the top of the columns that seem to be channeling mystic energy. Observing the large mystic circle on the ground, the experienced mage perfectly understands the enemy tactic. Then she steps forward very calmly, stating that she will take control of the battle by herself now. Suddenly, the fallen guy grabs the girl's leg tightly, instantly scaring the little necromancer. Grinding his teeth, the tired warrior accuses the little girl of using him as cheap bait in the dungeon. Faced with the accusation, the young girl gives a mocking smile, showing no guilt at all for what happened. She sticks her tongue out teasingly, calling the axe warrior pathetic and weak in combat. The lizard shaman watches the scene with fury, realizing he is being totally underestimated by kids. At that moment, the boy passes out completely due to the effects of the poisonous mist that covered the battlefield. The scouts run over worried, but the necromancer mentally praises her fainted ally's sacrifice. The arrogant reptilian boss roars victoriously, believing his win in the dungeon is already guaranteed. But she raises the pink crystal and activates her soul-harvesting spell to end the adversary's game. Soon, her dark servants roar intimidatingly, releasing an absurd amount of purplish magic energy into the air. The little girl channels her power and fires purplish energy beams straight at the stone totems. Stepping firmly into the center of the magic circle, she disables the illusion trap created by the terrible boss. With that, the two opponents face each other in the Great Hall, ready for the final showdown. The monster tries to fight back, but gets scared noticing that his main mana source is cracking and about to collapse. Then, she points her hand and commands a spirit blast to destroy the objects that were empowering her rival. A huge burst of shadow spell blows up the power sources and shatters the room's great protective seal. The lizard chokes on the smoke while the little girl mockingly asks if he enjoyed playing shaman. With a snap of her fingers, the little necromancer decides it's time to summon all her bone ants. Soon, dozens of small skeletal creatures surround the tired enemy, leaving no escape route. The monster yells in despair, knowing he should have run away before his strength was completely canceled out. The little girl watches coldly with her red eye, mocking his failed attempt to counterattack. The opponent's staff falls broken on the ground, while she thinks of the best way to finish the big battle. But the enemy starts thrashing hard and undergoes a frightening mutation that catches the young girl by surprise. His scales tear apart and his muscles grow in a bizarre way, releasing immense physical power into the air. The giant creature roars furiously in front of the little girl, who realizes this transformation wasn't part of the plan. With a brutal punch, the mutated monster attacks the girl, aiming to crush her small body against the solid floor. She screams in panic, seeing the incoming danger, not knowing how to defend herself from that overwhelming impact. At that moment, the heroic scout leader dives and grabs the girl, saving her life in a split second. The warrior asks worriedly if she got hurt, while the young girl cries, saying she was almost taken out. The giant lizard prepares to strike again, showing an uncontrollable thirst for battle, but Yuna shows up, attacking the enemy's back with her daggers to try and draw the monster's attention. Swordsman puts the little girl in a safe spot and lets her know that he and his friend will figure out a way to stop the danger. She grabs his clothes desperately, because if they are defeated, her plan to get friends will be ruined. The young man turns around, completely confused, and she yells, telling him not to run into danger like that. The little girl explains they just need to buy some time by distracting the beast so she can prepare a plan. Then, The guy gives a confident smile upon noticing the little necromancer really has a trick up her sleeve. She wonders why he trusts her so much but realizes she has no choice now but to act fast. Analyzing her resources, she notes that only 5 small bone monsters and 1 used mana stone are left. Knowing her little creatures can't evolve, she decides to improvise a risky new strategy. With that, she starts a body modification ritual on her servants, generating a powerful purple tornado. Inside the magic whirlwind, a gigantic and fearsome creature of bones begins to take shape in the room. Meanwhile, the scouts struggle to withstand the fury of the mutated monster charging at them in the arena. The giant beast delivers a fierce claw strike, aiming to put an end to the 2 defenseless warriors. But the youngsters scream in fright when they see a gigantic shadow appear in front of them, acting as a shield. A colossal purple bone and now protects the group and glares at the reptilian opponent with pure fury. Pointing at the enemy, the little master names her tightened in Apanara and orders it to crush him to dust. The giant lizard tries to attack furiously, delivering fast strikes against the new gigantic opponent. But the girl's colossal servant blocks the hits easily, proving it has an impenetrable defense. With a fierce charge, the bone titan hits the adversary, dealing heavy damage and making him roar loudly. The impact throws the reptilian creature far, knocking his massive, battered body straight to the ground. Next, the gigantic minion crushes the boss once and for all, securing the group's great victory. Exhausted but relieved, the little warrior celebrates that the combat is finally over and everyone is safe. As she was getting ready to leave, a blue system status screen starts glowing right in front of her. Her eyes widen in surprise as she reads the information that was just revealed on the blue screen. The blue exit portal begins glowing brightly, indicating the dungeon has been fully cleared. With the boss's fall, the barrier disappears, and all the students manage to get out of there safe and sound. Despite the victory, many rookies got injured, and the impulsive guy with axes ends up with his leg in a cast. Later, at the graduation ceremony, the little girl is praised by the instructors for the bravery she displayed, but she ignores the compliments, since she is focused on something much more valuable she just earned in the portal. Smiling, she notices her status finally went up, and that she has now reached her well-deserved level 1. The 3 teammates arrive at the girl's house, and are very surprised when they walk in. The older sister welcomes them happily and asks if they really are the little necromancer's new friends. They celebrate, revealing they are huge fans of the veteran warrior, while she chuckles awkwardly. Meanwhile, the little girl is focused on playing games on her computer and complains that her guests arrived too early. The older sister reflects on her effort and finally grants her permission to register, but she warns that if she fails the official test, she won't be able to complain about anything, and the little girl agrees instantly. She smiles victoriously, thinking she would never fail the test since she is the legendary master of the underworld. The next day, all the candidates line up to take the dreaded mana measurement test. Waiting for her turn, the little girl complains mentally about the number of weaklings trying to become hunters. Then, the instructor points at the little girl, telling her to step forward to begin her evaluation. The little girl steps into the tech booth and follows the command to stand still with her arms stretched out. A strong blue light begins covering the girl's body while the machine reads her power. The evaluator with glasses looks at the results panel with her eyes wide open in complete shock. She reveals the girl barely passed by only 3 points, sparking laughter among the other candidates. Suddenly, the panel flashes with the maximum score of 900 points, making the girl curious. She gets really annoyed when she realizes who was responsible for reaching that absurd mark. It is her impulsive rival who was just discharged from the hospital and is already showing off his monstrous score. The guy mocks her low score, and that makes her extremely furious, to the point of radiating pure anger. She boils with rage inside, realizing the annoying boy was definitely laughing in her face. Clenching her fist tightly, the girl swears she's going to wipe that smirk off the rival's face no matter what. Next, the instructor announces the start of the physical test, where they must strike an energy barrier. A young swordsman runs with determination, and readies his physical attack with all his might against the target. The sword strike causes a small impact on the barrier, resulting in a low score for the warrior. Soon after, a muscular warrior hits the energy shield using his massive iron chain. A powerful fire mage blasts the target, creating smoke and reaching the mid-tier ranking level. The little girl notices the maximum level there is the mid-tier ranking level and gets ready for her turn. But before her, the impulsive axe boy steps into the arena, drawing everyone's attention. The crowd whispers about his strength, eager to see the damage his weapons can cause. With a swift move, he spins his axes, creating a trail of wind and energy around him. The colossal impact breaks the protective barrier in half, leaving the instructors in complete shock. The crowd cheers at the guy's huge score, but the little girl pretends not to care about that display. The victorious young man looks back with disdain, wanting to see what his little rival's reaction will be. He gives a mocking smirk while the instructor finally calls the little girl to the arena. The audience whispers about her being the worst in the previous test, but the girl steps forward, ignoring the comments. Then, she tightly grips her necromancer ring, releasing a bright green light beam from the jewel. With a cool head and fully focused, she takes a deep breath, ready to show her true physical strength. She draws her sword, explaining mentally that her awakening also boosted her physical attributes. The weapon's blade starts turning completely dark, enveloped by a dense and spooky shadow energy. The spectators are surprised to see the bizarre, dark coloring appearing around her sword. With a quick push, the little girl slides across the arena floor, dashing forward like a true black lightning bolt. A horizontal slash of purple shadow energy rips through the air of the scene with unbelievable speed. The powerful strike completely destroys the machine's protective shield, reducing the device to dust. The axe rival and everyone in the crowd are left speechless, unable to believe that feat. The instructor with glasses breaks into a cold sweat seeing that the testing equipment was simply pulverized by the strike. She rests the weapon on her shoulder dismissively, celebrating achieving the arena's new all-time record. The arrogant boy trembles in fear, realizing the massive gap in power that exists between him and the girl. Mockingly, the little girl sticks her tongue out at him, declaring that his performance was very pathetic. He grinds his teeth in pure humiliation, while the young girl has fun knowing she finally got her payback. Suddenly, the scene goes dark, and the girl hears familiar voices calling her name insistently. She opens her eyes and faces her older sister's worried face, asking if she woke up. She wakes up startled and asks her sister if everything she experienced in the ranking test was just a dream. Her sister explains that the little girl came home skipping and humming with joy over the great result. But suddenly, the girl locked herself in her room and started screaming desperately, scaring the whole neighborhood. Then, she threw herself into the young woman's arms, crying like a dramatic drunk and begging not to be thrown away. The little girl was acting hysterical and pointing fingers, making everyone think she was crazy. She even shouted on the balcony, whining about her end until the young woman restrained her so the neighbors wouldn't complain. Despair hits as she remembers that, with the excitement of the test, she simply forgot to wear her special ring. With that, she understands Helena's warning about the terrible side effects of not wearing the protective jewelry. To celebrate her passing, her veteran sister prepares a wonderful feast with a gigantic roasted lobster. The little girl is amazed by the luxurious food and thanks her dear companion for the kindness. During the meal, the veteran asks if the little one really reached the top of the mid-tier ranking today. With her mouth full, the young necromancer brags, saying that to her, this kind of evaluation is a piece of cake. The older sister watches the girl's appetite and reflects proudly on the good performance she had in the test. Then, the veteran wonders if the girl's strange stories about the underworld aren't actually true. She imagines the girl as an imposing shadow queen, ruling an army of the fallen while standing on skulls. But the reality is that the girl only summoned a tiny skeletal minion made out of lobster shells. The grand illusion quickly fades from the young woman's mind, leaving a very comical mood in the kitchen. Silence takes over the apartment as the older sister realizes her sibling isn't exactly normal inside. Drinking some tea, the veteran decides to focus on the future and asks what her next steps are. The little girl gets confused by the question and wonders what plan would be necessary for her career. She plans to fight solo, but the older one warns that entering portals requires a minimum combat party. The little one feels uncomfortable since she hates working in a team and prefers the peace of acting alone. Deep in thought, she tries to find a solution until a glimmer of hope sparks in her brilliant mind. Excitedly, she reveals she knows a high-level hunter who might agree to partner up with her. Under a gray, cloudy sky, the young Yan walks peacefully along a beautiful, empty stone sidewalk. She sends text messages confirming she is on her way to the agreed meeting point with the master. The girl takes a deep breath, holding back her nerves as she walks up the hill surrounded by green trees. Feeling her heart race, she celebrates that she will finally get to know her mentor's true identity. She tries to guess the master's look, imagining he must be a mysterious and very elegant man. Then, she blushes with embarrassment, fantasizing about a charming foreign warrior coming from distant lands. But she finds the invitation to climb an isolated mountain weird and wonders where he actually lives. Step by step, the young girl moves forward with firm strides, determined not to be late for the most important meeting. Soon, she spots a huge oak tree and notices the silhouette of someone waiting quietly there. Running joyfully, she asks if that hooded figure is the master she has tried so hard to meet. She introduces herself with a huge smile on her face, showing all her excitement for the unique moment. The hood falls back, revealing the little, trembling girl holding her phone with both hands, looking quite shy. Yan is confused, seeing only a small child in the spot where the great sorcerer should be. Then, she points at the girl, asking if she is a relative or the daughter of the legendary shadow mentor. But suddenly, the girl's eyes light up as she comes to an absurd conclusion about the current situation. She deduces the little girl is a perfect awakened minion created by the master, and that makes the little one furious. The little necromancer complains about the student's slowness, revealing that she herself is the secret mentor from the internet. She looks at her student seriously, confirming her true identity as the Great Spirit Master. Walking together, they discuss the need to form an official party so they can hunt freely. The student is amazed by the master's cuteness and tries to get closer, while the girl asks for space. She puts up with the annoyance, remembering this partnership is the only way to enter portals with few people. Knowing the student is a strong warrior, the little girl decides to use her services to make things easier. Without wearing the stabilizer ring, the little girl suffers from her companion's constant chattering and feels exhausted. Upon arriving at the residence, the older sister opens the door, and Yan goes into shock upon recognizing the veteran. The little warrior observes the sudden silence, not understanding the reason for so much surprise in the hallway. She looks at both of them confused, not understanding the older girl's exaggerated reaction at that moment. Trembling, the student points at the little girl, stuttering as she realizes that child is her powerful master. She screams in surprise when she notices the girl's sister is the famous veteran warrior she is a massive fan of. The older sister is also amazed and scolds the little one for not telling her earlier about her elite friendship. With great joy, the veteran invites the visitor inside, leaving the impatient little girl aside. Sitting at the table, they chat in a friendly manner, commenting on how small the hunter world is. Then, the tense mood fades quickly, and the two veteran warriors start discussing battle stories. Soon, the older sister adopts a very serious tone and decides it's the ideal moment to get down to real business. She asks what the young girl's solo combat limit is, and wants to know which enemy she can beat without help. Deep in thought, the girl bites her lip, trying to remember the toughest monsters she has ever faced in dungeons. She explains she can take down a poisonous bull and even a crystal wolf if she really tries her hardest. The veteran continues her strict interrogation, wanting to ensure her younger sister's absolute safety. Suddenly, the topic changes, and the older one asks what the correct reaction should be if an argument starts. Confused, the student tries to recall military etiquette rules, counting the steps on her own fingers. The veteran reminds her she must control the environment, since the little one tends to give in easily under extreme pressure. Then, she points out the nervous tics in the little girl's eyes, explaining how to read the youngest's expressions. The girl celebrates with great excitement upon receiving final authorization to form her dream hunting party. With the suffocating meeting over, the student sends texts on her phone, amazed by her mentor's past. The little warrior answers while lying in bed, admitting she has now found a good clue about her power. She gives a subtle smile, reading the promise of unconditional support sent by her loyal and dedicated student. Then, she falls back happily, celebrating that starting tomorrow, she will begin her insane hunting marathon. She knows that by leveling up, she will be able to summon the gigantic and formidable guardians of the underworld once again. But the main mystery in the little girl's mind is finding out who was responsible for sealing her powers. Facing a huge magic seal, she questions the mysterious forces that blocked her sorcery. She dismisses the possibility of it being the blonde deity, since not even a demigod could seal her soul. With that, the little girl sits up in bed, spooked as she deduces the true magnitude of the opponent who cast this spell. She concludes fearfully that the terrifying being capable of performing such a seal must be hiding here on Earth. Furiously, she promises to turn the culprit into her first awakened minion as soon as she finds out their whereabouts. A short time later, the team's car travels down a road surrounded by a forest toward their first real portal. The driver complains about the little mentor's amount of demands, having rejected almost all the dungeons. But the argument is cut short when the little girl gets carsick and covers her mouth, about to throw up. The motion sickness hits hard due to the curvy road, and the driver screams frantically, telling her to use a bag. Finally, the vehicle's tires stop on the dirt, indicating they successfully reach the end of their route. Desperate, the little girl tumbles out of the vehicle straight onto the dirt, feeling extremely dizzy from the trip. Getting up from the ground, she focuses her gaze, determined to show all her dignity as a master inside the portal. The student gets out of the car and looks for the reception area, where they have to do the mandatory hunting registration. But the guild guard blocks their entrance, warning that without a physical hunter license, access is forbidden. The student is shocked to discover that her great mentor simply forgot the document at home. The little girl panics and starts screaming in anger, pulling her own hair over the silly distraction. The guard watches the scene in silence as a metal bottle cap rolls across the sandy parking lot floor. Then, the student crosses her arms in disappointment, while the girl starts whimpering out of pure embarrassment for her mistake. Crying loudly, she regrets the loss of her dignity, having to make the whole trip back to grab her ID. Already inside the dark cave, the student keeps scolding the little girl, who tries to defend herself from the lecture. Suddenly, the group hears heavy footsteps, and a huge beast's furry paw emerges from the dark depths. The girl stops her lecture and gets ready for the incoming fight, while the little one still complains mentally. 3 gray wolves with bright red eyes emerge from the shadows, growling threateningly. The master instructs the student to summon her spirits, but the girl thinks that would be overkill against wolves. Annoyed, the little girl tells her to stop complaining and focus on the command, showing 3 glowing magic eggs. Obeying the order, the girl throws the objects on the ground, summoning the spirit servants with her purple mist. Huge phantom beasts of purple energy rise from the smoke, scaring the real wolves in the cave. Additionally, several skeletal warriors armed with shields and bows rise, ready to fight. The fearsome bone soldiers charge hard at the wolf pack, starting a violent clash. The wild animal roars, baring its sharp teeth as it charges toward the phantom army, but the bone warrior is faster and blocks the wolf's bite with its impressive endurance. An extremely fast and precise sword cuts through the cave air with incredible ease. The finishing blow goes through the wild creature, scattering its energy across the stone wall of that dungeon. Right after, the skeletal archer fires a pinpoint arrow at another opponent trying to run away. The giant soldier's fist brutally hits the animal's snout, breaking its defense instantly. The strong minion smashes the ground with its heavy fist, creating a big impact that throws the enemies into the air. The wild animal's body collapses lifelessly on the cave floor, totally defeated by the strength of the summons. The student celebrates the victory, proud of the performance, while the little mentor watches with utter disdain. With that, the girl pouts and sulks, hearing the harsh criticism about her lack of technique. Annoyed, she dares the little one to show her how it's done, and the girl tells her to keep her voice down in the dungeon. The bone warriors start fading into purple smoke under the little master's silent command. Then, she points her hand at the fallen bodies and tells the student to pay close attention to her movement. She stands still while a giant wild wolf runs toward her very furiously to attack. The opponent leaps fiercely, but the little girl merely focuses her purplish magic energy in the palm of her hand with a mystic strike. She hits the target in mid-air, explaining that the secret is to focus energy on the core of the being. Right after, the little necromancer casts her classic spell to begin the reanimation process. The animal skeleton rips out from inside its own body, wrapped in a thick and spooky purple smoke. The new giant skeletal beast charges furiously, tearing through the other enemies with its sharp claws. The shadow minion executes extremely fast slashes, ending the entire cave thread in seconds. The opponents cry out in pain, unable to react against the spectacular speed of the bone wolf. The combat ends quickly with the fall of the entire pack, guarded that dark part of the cave. Yan watches that scene with wide eyes, unable to believe what she just witnessed. The student grabs the little girl, screaming with excitement, and asks if that really is her level 1 power. The little girl tells her to stop yelling and patiently explains how to save mana during summons. Smiling inwardly, she reveals that her hunter level just went up to level 2 after the fight. Outside, the guard looks at his wristwatch and calculates that it will take them hours to come out. He stretches in his chair, thinking about going to grab a snack, believing the dungeon will still take a long time. But the two girls casually walk out of the portal carrying a large bag full of valuable loot. The security guard runs toward them in surprise, unable to believe the dungeon was cleared so fast. He stammers in shock, claiming it's impossible to beat that challenge in just 2 hours of hunting. Over the next few days, the two partners keep invading portals and taking down giant stone totems. The little necromancer faces gigantic snakes, breaking all-time records in every new dungeon. Other warriors whisper on the street, saying they became famous on the forums as the Speed Duo. Wearing a blue cap, the little girl listens to the curious bystanders' comments and mentally complains about people gossiping. With 1 month of training, her level goes up to 17, making the young girl proud of her fast progress. But the piece ends when the student invites the little girl to join her lab broadcast. The young woman clasps her hands, begging for help since she made a bet with her social media followers. She throws herself on the floor begging, while the little master tries to break free, complaining about all that drama. Sighing, the girl accepts the invite and mentally prepares to deal with the burden of getting famous. The stream's chat floods with eager messages as the viewers wait for the live to start. Wearing a skull mask, the little girl steps in front of the camera and stammers a shy greeting to everyone. The internet users make fun of her, calling her an apprentice, but she nervously answers that she is actually the Grand Master. Annoyed by the jokes, she lifts the mask and yells, asking if they want to see real magic live. She starts arguing excitedly with the followers, completely forgetting her shyness in front of the screen. The student watches the scene happily, realizing the audience loved her little mentor's strong personality. Suddenly, the girl's expression changes when reading a weird question about a famous warrior in the stream chat. Replies that she doesn't know this mysterious figure, leaving the chat viewers quite surprised. Then, the little girl presses a computer key, stating that if they fought, she would easily beat the rival. At that moment, the blonde turns off the computer, and the little girl complains, not understanding the reason for such a rush. With that, the blonde panics, while the smaller one thinks talking about that hunter was no big deal. Quickly, The internet explodes with news saying the rookie decided to challenge a famous warrior. Right then, a mysterious man looks at the challenge post on his phone with close attention. He takes a drag from his cigarette while reading the gossip about the new hunter who tagged him online. The American elite hunter with sunglasses is surprised to see the little girl's boldness on the internet. He is famous for leveling up very fast and is considered one of the big stars of this new world. Known as a relentless gladiator, this warrior has a violent fighting style and recovers quickly, despite being popular for his honesty in interviews. He also has a reputation for being quite arrogant. The man says he hates necromancers and finds it gross to use allies, fallen forms as shadow servants in battle. Then, the host asks if that critique was aimed at the girl who went viral on the internet. Taking off his glasses, the warrior says the rookie made a mistake and needs to learn a real lesson. He points at the camera, stating that real warriors fight head-on without using monsters as shields. With that, the TV is suddenly turned off by a remote, cutting the program's broadcast. The older sister holds the device with a scary face and gives off a purple aura full of pure rage. The two girls are kneeling on the floor, trembling in fear of the scolding they are about to get from the veteran. They apologize silently while the older girl glares at them with her hands on her hips, demanding answers. Then, the veteran yells, saying the gossip spread worldwide, and the little girl cries, trying to explain herself. The older sister also scolds the blonde for not turning off the live stream before the chaos broke out. The younger one asks if the situation is serious, but the blonde warns that she doesn't know the danger of that hunter. The veteran explains that besides being very strong, the rival has a dark past linked to dangerous individuals. To make matters worse, she reveals that the American warrior is extremely vindictive and holds grudges. He already ruined a colleague's career just over a silly fight about burger brands. The influencer tries to comfort herself, thinking the man won't care, but the other one doesn't buy it. At that moment, the little girl tries to relax, thinking it would be ridiculous for him to travel just to get back at them. But whenever someone says that, something bad happens, and the phone starts vibrating on the bedroom desk. Annoyed, the girl takes off her headphones to see who is sending so many messages non-stop. She gets a huge fright, and her red eyes go wide as she looks at the phone screen. The screen shows dozens of weird spam messages, clogging her entire inbox all at once. Several fake news stories start popping up online, accusing the influencer of committing multiple frauds. In a new live stream, the blonde desperately tries to defend herself, while her subscribers start cursing and canceling her. Suddenly, her stream gets banned from the platform for supposedly violating community guidelines. She calls the younger one crying, asking for support. But the little hunter doesn't care much about her friend's drama. Besides, the little girl is also stressed playing on her computer as she sees a player steal her raid. Angrily, the younger one hits the desk, yelling that the jerk invaded her game to steal her rewards. Then she begins to suspect that these virtual and IM attacks might be the American hunter's doing. But the situation crosses the line when her game account gets permanently banned for hacking. The little one freezes in front of the white computer screen, unable to believe the unfair ban. Her phone falls from her hand straight to the dark bedroom floor, while silence takes over the place. On the floor, the device keeps vibrating, displaying more threatening messages telling her to watch out. Instead of getting sad, the little one gives a bizarre, unhinged smile, showing her patience is gone. She starts laughing in a bizarre and uncontrollable way, releasing a frightening thirst for battle in the room. The young girl yells furiously, swearing revenge against the wretch who dared to mess up her peaceful life. After the outburst, she takes a deep breath and calms down, determined to put a permanent end to this clown show. With a dark look, the younger one coldly states she'll need to take down the one responsible for all this chaos. The next day, the influencer is shocked to hear the master plans to travel to America to fight. The blonde covers her mouth, afraid of drawing the attention of the employees working in the coffee shop. Wearing a mask, she tries to convince the girl to drop this crazy idea of traveling because of a live stream. but the blonde gets confused when the little girl says the main problem isn't the banned broadcast. The younger one shouts with hate, revealing the man also banned her diamond account in her favorite game. With that, the blonde tries to help, saying she knows someone in the business to try and recover the banned account. But the little necromancer has other dark plans and prefers to turn the culprit into her awakened servant. Her companion reminds her they don't have enough information to find the rival in the middle of America. With a firm look, the little girl warns there's always a smart way to solve these problems. She remembers she has a second, highly skilled disciple who is usually helpful in these tough times. At the mansion, the woman with long hair reveals she knows the American hunter and his dirty secrets very well. The powerful top-tier necromancer asks if the little master just wants a chance to meet him. Then, the blonde almost faints from shock, discovering the powerful witch was the little girl's second student. Very elegantly, the new ally says she respects the blonde a lot for being her senior in their studies. She then suggests the best tactic to catch the rival isn't hunting him down, but setting up bait to lure him. The two friends are shocked when the green-haired woman promises to bring the hunter to Korea. They are horrified to learn the opponent often does illegal and shady deals in the region. 2 weeks later, the scene shifts to an abandoned, quiet warehouse in the middle of the starry night. Heavy footsteps echo on the dark asphalt, announcing the arrival of someone mysterious at that warehouse. At that moment, the American hunter enters the dark place, demanding the delivery of the promised goods. A beautiful woman in a suit with a black briefcase turns to face the man with a cold, piercing look. She opens the metal container, revealing the artifact, while the opponent watches with deep greed. He praises the legendary monster bone item inside the case and smiles, believing he made a good deal. But the villain quickly betrays the deal and attacks the negotiator, grabbing the lady by the neck brutally. The villain complains about being underestimated and warns he can sense other people hiding around them. Then, the American reveals he noticed the trap because the item she brought was just a fake replica. Very coldly, the hunter ruthlessly strikes the lady down to the floor without showing any remorse for the cruel act. Soon he turns toward the shadows and orders the intruders to come out of hiding at once. The man proves he has great combat instincts as he tries to figure out who his adversaries are. 2 mysterious silhouettes emerge from the shadows, revealing the hooded little girl and her loyal blonde squire. The fallen young woman gives a creepy smile, and Helena points out that that lady was just an awakened puppet. The master notes the villain attack to finish her off and comments he seems, well, accustomed to cruel crimes. Suddenly, the mystic ring on the little master's hand starts glowing intensely with an emerald light. With a scary smile, the little girl releases her purple spell, ready to start the real fight. The elite hunter arrogantly asks if the little girl is just a weak helper to his opponent. Mockingly, the smaller one tells him to shut up and asks if the villain still hasn't realized the mistake he made. Then, she fires a purple power beam, yelling that the rival destroyed her precious video game account. The warrior gets extremely terrified seeing the absurd power of the girl's destructive magic. The massive blast of mystic energy explodes against the wall, creating a huge shockwave in the warehouse. He dodges the attack and complains in disbelief that she set up all this mess just over a simple game. But the little necromancer tells the man to mind his manners and focuses her attention on launching more fast strikes at him. She remembers when she cried in anger in her room while trying to rank up in her matches. Furiously, the little girl yells that she spent sleepless nights to manage to reach her diamond rank. Without understanding anything, the opponent drops his briefcase and mocks her, saying she's just a weak low-level nobody. With that, the American draws his glowing blue mystic blade to put an end to that silly argument for good. The warrior claims he wasted his precious time there and swears to take them both down as compensation. With a swift motion, he delivers an overwhelming sword strike that cuts the wind with brutal force. The smaller one pushes her blonde companion back, telling her to retreat and just make sure the enemy doesn't escape from there. Then, the little warrior jumps into the air as the dangerous villain charges head on using his steel shield. Furiously, he brings down his mystic weapon, delivering a fatal slash straight at the girl's defenseless body. A violent impact hits the center of the warehouse, generating smoke and debris all over the dark scene. Seeing the devastating attack, the frightened influencer screams desperately for her dear mentor's sake. The impact leaves its mark as the struck girl falters, while the arrogant gladiator smiles victoriously. But suddenly, a small straw doll appears floating in the air, leaving the warrior quite confused. Laughing out loud, the girl says he is pathetic for not knowing the difference between her and an illusion doll. Sitting on the ceiling pipes, the little one mocks the rival's level, calling his strength very cute. She floats down and warns that if the opponent doesn't have good intel, it's easy to get fooled in combat. The system panel glows, revealing the younger one trained hard until she reached level 29. The American looks terrified at the remnants on the ground, realizing the dolls were mutated spiders. With a scary smile, the girl points her finger, declaring that the main event is going to start now. Channeling her purple mist, she makes dozens of skeletal spiders emerge from the dark warehouse floor. But the arrogant gladiator charges forward laughing, saying cheap tricks like that won't work on him. Then, a huge cone of purple energy starts forming on the ceiling of the place, startling the adversary. The massive magic structure slowly slides toward the ground, releasing a lot of spirit pressure. The mystic cocoon starts cracking in half, letting a trail of shadow light shine through the enclosed space. The American warrior watches that massive rift open right in front of him tensely, not knowing what to expect. A mysterious voice echoes from inside the portal, declaring her happiness at being summoned by the master again. From the shadows emerges a beautiful spider creature dressed in red, answering to the name Penerochi. She looks at the surroundings and realizes she is in a completely different world from her spirit home. Joyfully, the monster grabs the smaller one in a very tight hug, praising her summoner's cuteness. Annoyed, the little girl tries to break free and yells that this battle moment is no time for playing around. The monster finally understands the situation and focuses her hungry gaze toward the terrified gladiator. Pointing at the adversary, the little girl orders her servant to end his run in just 7 minutes. With her dark, shining eyes, the fearsome creature promises to fulfill her master's order right away. Then, she unleashes a terrifying shadow presence that makes the American hunter tremble with pure dread. He breaks into a cold sweat upon realizing the low-level summoner can control such strong elite servants. Panic sets in, and the warrior decides to step back, feeling that this fight will be very complicated. But in a cowardly move, he changes his route and leaps with his sword, aiming to strike the blonde watching from afar. The horizontal slash of his blade rips through the air, trying to hit the young woman in the dark arena. Desperate, she covers her face, screaming in panic as she sees the mystic weapon is about to hit her body. But the strike is blocked at the last second by a magic barrier that appears, protecting her companion. Glowing red chains wrap around the American warrior's body, binding his arms with immense force. Helena reveals the villain fell straight into her trap when she used her special soul confinement spell. Grinding his teeth, the opponent realizes he is now locked in a high-stakes battle against the rivals. With extreme speed, the monster jumps from the ceiling, landing fast strikes on the rival with her sharp claws. He uses his shield to hold back the aerial attack, but the battle's pressure starts cracking the concrete floor. Grinding his teeth, the warrior shouts furiously, calling the two adversaries insolent pests. Then, the American hunter begins a violent sword charge, trying to strike the creature's chest. He focuses all his physical strength on the frontal attack, showing a savage fury worthy of a gladiator. But the spider servant just gives a sarcastic smirk, finding the opponent's effort very pathetic. She blocks his powerful mystic blade, using only her glowing bone hind legs. The opponent sweats cold, noticing the monster's mystic defense is simply impenetrable in combat. Suddenly, she fires blasts of sticky web from the ceiling, forcing the rival to fall back to defend himself. Upon touching the ground, the warrior notices a dense purple poison mist covering the entire floor of that warehouse. The creature praises the adversary's endurance, but warns that his playtime is very close to the end. With that, a golden glow covers the rival's body, revealing he is using his fast healing spell. The man gives a mocking smile, claiming they don't have a single chance to beat his regeneration. He brags, saying he will be the last one standing, but suddenly starts coughing heavily mid-sentence. The villain chokes violently as he drops to his knees on the floor. Scared, the gladiator wonders what is happening, and the little master decides to reveal a secret. She calmly explains that her spider servant's hind legs are coated in a lethal poison. The hunter falls into despair, knowing the deadly toxin will spread even faster if he fights. With complete calm, the little girl starts counting on her fingers, taking a vote on his fate. She mockingly asks if he prefers to turn into a shadow knight or a regular awakened servant. But the villain lowers his head and starts laughing in a bizarre way, leaving a tense mood in the dark arena. With red eyes full of pure madness, he flashes a maniacal smile, showing he won't give up easily. The two companions watch the opponent's insane reaction with great suspicion and silence. The man praises the little necromancer's strength, admitting it's been a while since he faced such a tight spot. He guarantees he won't go down without giving it his all, and focuses his last reserve of power. The little master notices the rival's sudden energy shift and stays alert for his next move. Then, the gladiator charges forward like a true golden hurricane, shattering the very ground with his steps. The villain activates his forbidden god of war skill, unleashing a massive explosion of yellow flames. The giant wave of destructive energy covers the whole warehouse, lighting up the three girls at the entrance. The smaller one realizes he used a rage technique and orders her servant to wrap up the clash quickly. Roaring with extreme violence, the warrior yells, asking where they think they are going to escape to. With a monstrous leap, he crosses the warehouse, delivering a vertical strike covered in golden flames. But the skilled spider creature crosses her arms, readying her red barrier to withstand the impact. The two forces collide, creating a massive purple shockwave that makes the warehouse walls shake. She dodges the gladiator's attack gracefully, sliding through the shadows with elite agility. But suddenly, the monster gets startled when she realizes the opponent managed to dodge her counterattack. She spins around quickly, trying to track the warrior's position as he vanished from her line of sight. The rival appears behind the spider servant, unleashing a very fast golden light slash in the air. Seeing the incoming danger, the warrior pushes his blade forward while coughing even more. The monster is hit directly by a net of golden slashes that catches her in a chain of damage. She complains the enemy is too fast and warns that his poison will take a while to take effect. The spider servant asks the master to increase the magic energy supply, but she says she's at her limit. Taking hits, the monster says she needs to assume her true giant spider form to win the fight. But the little girl tries to stop the summon out of fear of the consequences the real transformation will bring. Even with the warning, a huge storm of purple energy starts covering the spider servant's body in the room. The creature's terrifying and glowing red eyes start opening in the middle of the dense purple mist. The mystic impact of the mutation creates a blast of dark wind that violently throws the rival far away. The opponent balances on the ground with difficulty, grinding his teeth in pure terror at the cocoon's power. The monster's body starts growing bizarrely, revealing the gigantic monster that was hidden. Finally, the elite hunter looks up, trembling with fear as he sees. The elite hunter smiles insanely upon seeing the beast's size, saying that now the fight is worth it. Then he charges forward, launching a destructive golden slash to cut the giant spider monster in half. The gladiator screams with all his might, releasing a massive amount of power into the smoke. He focuses his fierce gaze as the fury of battle consumes his mind uncontrollably, but the colossal beast deflects the attack, slamming its giant leg against the floor and causing a strong impact. Nimbly, the warrior jumps, dodging the debris, and prepares a new counterattack from above. Suddenly, he is caught off guard by a huge invisible web that completely blocks his advance. The bluish web wraps around the hunter's whole body, pinning his arms and sword with great force. The villain roars in pure rage and despair when he notices he is completely immobilized in the dark arena. The blonde runs with the little girl in her arms to escape that explosion, while the adversary is thrown far. Then, the giant spider delivers a crushing blow, slamming the gladiator brutally against the floor. The hunter's sword starts shaking in his hand, weakened by the devastating effect of the lethal poison. Even heavily injured, he gets up screaming with hate and attempts one last desperate charge with his weapon. A screeching sound of metal echoes through the warehouse as the forces clash in a brutal final showdown. The monster shows a diabolical smile while the gladiator realizes his strength is completely gone. With that, the crushing blow shatters the concrete floor, finally taking down the hunter amidst the dust. The golden marks glow one last time in the shadows, revealing the end of that frightening battle. Smoke slowly begins to clear, while the purple mystic portal closes in the darkness of the warehouse. A giant stone cocoon remains intact amidst the debris, serving as protection for the two girls. The blonde breathes a sigh of relief as she steps out of the mystic shield and gives thanks for that magic cocoon's resilience. But the little necromancer complains angrily at her own spider servant for almost draining all her mana. From the shadows, the beautiful spider creature returns to her human form. Walking slowly through the smoke, she complains about her master's weakness and tells the girl to level up before summoning her again. The blonde walks with the tired little girl in her arms and questions the fate of the injured American hunter. At that moment, they spot the villain totally tangled in blue webs. Showing no signs of getting back up, he breathes very heavily and stammers that they will pay dearly for this offense in Korea with hatred. The man swears the rivals will be hunted by his guild to the ends of the earth. He yells that the mysterious rogue organization called Hades will chase them all over the world. The little girl keeps a straight face, claiming she has never heard of any organization with that name. Suddenly, the opponent stops talking entirely, and the blonde gets startled as she realizes he just faded away right there. Very weak, the little necromancer collapses on the floor, complaining about extreme exhaustion after dispelling her magic. She tells the blonde to step back a bit so she can start the battlefield cleanup process. Days later, the television shows news that the famous American warrior has been missing for a week. The older sister finds the news weird, while the little girl plays dumb, gaming on her phone. But suddenly, the younger one's red eyes light up as she reads an unexpected notification on her device. Joyfully, the little one celebrates that she finally managed to recover her beloved account and goes back to playing video games. In the mansion, the red-haired disciple talks to Helena, praising the success the secret plan against the adversary. The Master of Shadows thanks the redhead for her help, telling her to rest after all her effort on the secret mission. Sunk into the armchair, Helena reflects on the dangers of the little girl getting involved with the terrible Hades. She knows the members of that dreaded rogue cult will have to reveal their true identity. 2 months pass by, and peace reigns in the city under the beautiful starry night sky full of tranquility. The older sister comes home from work to her apartment, happily calling out to the little one at the entrance. Walking down the dark hallway, she hears repetitive mouse clicking sounds coming from her room. The little girl is totally focused on the monitor screen, her red eyes glowing in the dark. She fires virtual shots at opponents in the game, showing spectacular finger agility. Cheering loudly, the smaller one raises her arms, celebrating that she finally returned to her well-deserved diamond rank. But the older one holds the girl's head, laughing dismissively, and asks if she is having a lot of fun. On the bedroom floor, several empty soda bottles show the little one has become a complete couch potato. The veteran crosses her arms worriedly, saying she's been like this ever since she trained in the dungeon with the blonde. Feeling awkward, the smaller one tries to play it off by smiling and scratching her head, so she doesn't reveal the truth about the big fight. The younger one reflects that she needed to rest from the exhaustion of the battle. But playing video games again was way more fun. At that moment, the veteran lets her know the blonde has been looking for her and sending countless messages. Panic hits when she learns her former classmates are also out exploring dungeons with the guild. She remembers the strong warrior who already leveled up to the mid-tier and is progressing incredibly fast. With that, the little girl makes a funny, surprised face, unable to believe her old friend's absurd progress. She quickly starts searching for information on the internet search engine to clear up this gossip. Shock takes over her expression, and her red eyes get glued to her computer monitor. The little hunter grumbles with her head down, while her dear sister watches her with a very confused look. She points at articles calling her outdated on the internet for disappearing from real hunting missions. Then, she admits she slacked off too much for 2 months, but complains that the journalists have been very cruel to her. So the younger one decides it's time to get back to hunting, and her companion celebrates her sudden decision. But she knows she reached level 29 and needs bigger challenges to keep progressing fast. The blonde influencer meets the little one on the street and complains furiously about her calls going unanswered. Trembling with embarrassment, the little girl tries to explain herself, saying she still hasn't gotten used to meetings in the street. The blonde reminds her she spent the last few days locked up gaming and asks if they are going hunting together now. In front of a massive tree, the blonde explains that medium dungeons require parties with at least 6 hunters. The blonde forbids the little one from picking up strangers on the street, reminding her she always gets involved with bizarre people. With total desperation, the little girl pulls her own hair and promises she will only summon elite acquaintances. But the blonde doubts she knows anyone else in the country, and the little one starts typing fast on her phone. The blonde asks if the little one is going to call the strong warrior, but reminds her he's been busy and very sought. After ignoring the warning, the little one dials the guy, determined to invite him to the snow dungeon. To her surprise, the boy answers the phone very cheerfully, showing he missed his mentor. With that, she nods along to everything on the phone while her friend complains about how slow she is. He explains that the elite guild is hiring mercenaries and invites the small team to join them. The little girl gets extremely excited about the offer and asks if she can bring one more person from her team. Crying tears of joy, she celebrates that having extroverted friends makes her hunter life much easier. Regret hits quickly when they arrive at the dungeon under a terrible, freezing blizzard. Dozens of elite hunters gather at the freezing dungeon entrance, talking among themselves in silence. The veteran warriors whisper as they recognize the little necromancer, who had been missing from major battles. She feels uncomfortable with the number of warriors on the expedition and asks why there are so many people there. Feeling dizzy, the smaller one almost passes out from social exhaustion, but the blonde lets her know they will be in a smaller group. Her companion tries to cheer her up, reminding her it's a unique chance to explore a high-tier portal. At that moment, the expedition leader commands the group, ordering the setup of a safe base in the cold snow. With that, the official expedition begins, and the veteran warriors march toward the inside of the freezing rift. Across the vast mountain, the explorers split into small search parties to locate the final boss. Soon, the vanguard team is attacked by a terrible snow monster, starting a tense clash in the snow. But the search for the mystic boss takes many days, causing great fatigue and irritation among the team leaders. The cold drains everyone's strength, and the little girl starts sneezing loudly, suffering from the freezing weather there. On the 10th day of the expedition, the veteran fighters keep walking with difficulty through the blizzard. The younger one wishes to go back to the warmth of her room, but suddenly the scout shouts, warning about new dangers. A massive herd of monstrous stone boars charges full speed at the defenseless band of warriors. The swordsman orders everyone to hold their combat formation, but is startled when he sees the little girl's missed signal. Then, a colossal bone servant from the underworld rises from the freezing ground under the little master's mystic orders. The stone beasts charge hard, showing their large tusks, but are stopped by the massive awakened servant. With extreme brutality, the bone titan crushes the boars, throwing them far away with ease. The mercenaries are baffled as they recognize the summoned minion was the monster they defeated yesterday. The little master focuses her determined gaze and warns that the team needs to pick up the pace on the snowy mountain. Her guardian's massive skeletal arm strikes more targets, clearing a path through the freezing blizzard there. It delivers extremely heavy blows, clearing the entire enemy horde in just a few seconds of battle. The warriors watch the scene in all of the spectacular efficiency of the little one's combat tactic. The swordsman celebrates the mystic support, saying that using the giant ice warrior will make the search much easier. Following the trail left by their ally, they finally spot a large mystic cave in the ice. Then, the guild leader approaches the great stone portal, confirming that is the big boss room, but the boy turns down the compliments, explaining the little necromancer was mostly responsible for that victory. Lying on her friend's lap, the little one trembles with exhaustion, grumbling that she will finally be able to go back home. The group leader reflects on her strength and promises he will thank her personally when they get out of there. Suddenly, a massive tremor shakes the freezing dungeon, instantly scaring the elite hunters. The little girl opens her eyes, in shock hearing the bizarre noise coming from the dark depths of the portal. Soon, all the warriors run back to the entrance and take a defensive stance with their swords drawn. An army of black figures slowly approaches, creating massive magic pressure throughout the dark tunnel. A huge dragon skull with glowing yellow eyes emerges from the dark, terrifying the whole squad there. The high-tier leader bites his lip worriedly, realizing that creature is way beyond everyone's level. Very carefully, they raise their torches and plan how to organize the classes to try and survive. Squeezed in the middle of the hunter crowd, the little girl panics, just wanting to return home. With that, the guild leader steps up to the entrance of the great room, keeping his expression focused and firm for combat. His eyes widen extremely as he faces the true magnitude of that terrible boss monster. Before him stands a colossal ice snake with purple horns that gives off an unbearable freezing aura. The creature opens its sharp jaws wide and roars deafeningly, gathering an ice breath. Everyone falls into utter despair, and the leader yells, ordering the team to get into position for mortal combat. The monster fires a massive freezing blast, shaped like a snowflake, against the young hunters. The powerful blue beam instantly freezes the ground stones, creating massive crystal spikes. The icy explosion completely blocks everyone's vision, covering the battlefield in cold mist. But the heroic leader breaks the ice with his mystic sword, charging furiously to slice the adversary. He yells, encouraging the mages and archers to fire their concentrated attacks at the boss's body. Dozens of projectiles and energy beams are launched, lighting up the dark cave with a bright flash. The blonde also casts her magic, summoning several skeletal warriors to provide support on the front line. The fierce clash begins, and the allies give it their all, dealing heavy slashes to the snake's scales. Large magic explosions hit the ice dragon's head, making the creature shake violently. While everyone fights, the smaller one huddles in her coat, remembering her ring is still recharging. Suddenly, the little girl clutches her hood tightly, noticing something very bizarre in the middle of that fight. She realizes that boss room's mystic energy flow doesn't match the rest of the dungeon. The hunter theorizes that this specific space was distorted and brought from a parallel dimension. But the summoned servants keep delivering brutal punches, aiming to weaken the huge portal beast. The strong skeletal soldier delivers a crushing blow that knocks the giant snake scales against the ground. Upon impact, several ice crystals fall from the ceiling, and the snake roars in pain from the direct hit. Seizing the opening, the heroic leader leaps at high speed, unleashing a vertical sword strike. The blade attack slashes the ice boss's body from top to bottom, scattering bright energy through the air. With mastery, the warrior lands on the ground, while the adversary's frozen pieces fall destroyed. The whole guild joyfully celebrates the great victory, asking if their elite master is okay. The swordsman praises the summoned soldiers, admitting the team only survived thanks to that fine help. But the celebration is cut short when a hunter asks where that dungeon's blue exit portal is. The smaller one gets quite tense, noticing that the return portal didn't appear in the center of the defeated arena. A hooded mage trembles in fear, deducing that giant mystic snake might not have been the final boss. Suddenly, a massive and frightening red rift starts opening up in the rocky cave walls, thinking it's the exit. The warriors approach happily, but the leader notices a scary detail there. The swordsman throws his ally to the ground, yelling at him not to walk into the portal so carelessly. Confused, the boy asks the reason for that sudden aggression, and the commander tells him to look carefully. He warns he can feel a bizarre energy coming from it, proving that portal is only meant for entering. The little girl fearfully deduces they ended up falling into a hidden dungeon inside another dungeon. She focuses her determined eyes, confirming that this red rift is the path they needed to find. Worried, the leaders debate the next step, since there are only 4 days of supplies left in the blizzard. One of them suggests waiting for the mystic portal to open, but the veteran warrior disagrees with the silly idea. The high-tier master states the only safe option to save people is to march through the red portal. With that, he orders the teams advance, believing they will manage to handle the challenge if they work together. The little hunter falls into despair, realizing they actually plan to invade the mysterious rift. At that moment, the commander marches head on into the red mystic rift, guiding the fearless band of rookies. The heavy footsteps of the fighters echo on the rocky floor as they walk through the portal in silence. With a lot of dread, the younger one walks right behind, scanning the surroundings for any hidden danger. Suddenly, a purplish magic smoke fills the environment, covering all visibility with a mysterious mist. The little girl focuses her determined eyes, feeling that an absurdly evil energy is concentrated nearby. She breaks into a cold sweat of terror, realizing that Mystic Place is far more dangerous than she initially thought. Looking ahead, the explorers are horrified to see thousands of skulls covering the floor. The atmosphere gets extremely heavy and hard to breathe, leaving the blonde quite scared and panting. The warrior yells to keep their guard up, but a terrifying night phantom appears right behind him. With a swift attack, the dark knight pierces the commander's ally's chest with his lethal spear. Then, the group leader flies into a rage, screaming his injured friend's name, and steps forward determined to strike back. With a devastating horizontal slash, he unleashes an attack with his mystic blade against the evil specter. But the fast knight dodges the attack and rides away at a gallop into the darkness of that hall of bones. The hooded mage kneels next to the ally and trembles as he warns that he stopped breathing after the strike. The blonde companion asks in shock what kind of creature that was, and the younger one reveals it's a Dullahan. The little girl seriously explains that this dungeon has the maximum danger ranking, but the conversation is cut short when a mystic voice echoes through the hall, catching everyone's attention there. Suddenly, the warriors start screaming in pain, feeling a terrible mental pressure affecting their brains. The younger one realizes the shadow telepathy is driving all the mages sensitive to the underworld crazy, but she sighs mockingly, knowing such a weak mental trick would never work against her soul. Very boldly, the little girl questions out loud, wanting to know the true identity of the owner of that voice. The mysterious mystic voice begins to laugh, finding the presence of the little necromancer there very interesting. A huge, spooky skeletal hand emerges from the red mist, revealing the arrival of the Grand Master of the place. Astonishment hits the little girl, who focuses her determined gaze on the massive, dark spiritual threat. The supreme monster tells the little one to step closer, revealing he wishes to have a friendly chat with her.